Chapter 1660. Tianyun had already seen other heavenly venerates destroy his barrier, but he had never seen so many heavenly gods destroy his barrier. Under their ferocious attacks, every one of their attacks seemed to be smashing into the hearts of everyone in the god realm of the three realms. If they really broke through, they would truly be in despair. Even the sight of so many heavenly gods was terrifying. After all, there was basically not a single heavenly god in the god realm of the three realms. The strongest was only a high-level heavenly venerate. This barrier should be able to hold on. Heavenly Misfortune had already returned. After she returned and reported everything, the Fekta domain ruler and the others were ecstatic. They thought that Heavenly Misfortune was dead, but to their surprise, he was still alive and had been saved by Tianyun. Even Gokai had been captured. After reporting, Heavenly Misfortune sorted out some things and immediately rushed over with Heavenly Luck. Heavenly God Luck was a man of her word, and she immediately chose to join the divine realm of the three realms as an elder. Not only Heavenly God Luck, but Heavenly God Misfortune also joined as an elder. Not only did they want to repay Tianyun for saving their lives, but they also wanted to study the situation of the three realms' divine realm. Not only did the two sisters join, but they also brought a large pile of treasures as a thank you gift. It could be said that they had poured in all sorts of resources. They had brought all sorts of treasures from the Fekta domain, which could be said to have improved greatly. They had also established a divine secret battalion in the god realm of the three realms. They specialized in the cultivation of machinery and the like, just like the Fekta domain. Although they could not teach everything, they could still impart some of it. Tianyun was very satisfied with this. If this continued, the god realm of the three realms would definitely become stronger rapidly. However, before it had even become stronger, the evil spirit race had already charged over and was constantly smashing the barrier. This made the two sisters' hearts palpitate. They were worried that the barrier would suddenly break. I think there will be no problem. Right now, the main thing is the situation on Huan Mingyue's side. As long as Huan Mingyue is not affected, everything will be fine. Tianyun narrowed his eyes as he looked at the gods outside and said, but with such a big formation, would some old farts come out? They definitely won't come out. All of those old farts have gone into hiding, and they definitely won't appear unless it's a critical moment. Heavenly Luck shook her head. For example, they might only appear during another battle between the divine emperors. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any commotion even if some forces were destroyed. After all, if we come out, we'll really have to fight against them, and we might even have to face evil emperor and the others' counterattack. Thus, they will only appear at the most crucial moment. At the very least, they won't appear when your faction is destroyed. Heavenly God Luck's words were very reasonable, and Tianyun also believed that those old farts wouldn't come out. If those old farts came out, it would really be lively. Soon, all of the heavenly spirit gods were knocked flying by the ferocious attacks. Not only were they unable to damage the barrier in the slightest, but they had also sustained internal injuries. How is this possible? So many heavenly spirit gods are attacking, but there's not even a scratch. The evil emperor's expression was extremely dark. There were at least 7 or 8 heavenly gods attacking the barrier, but there wasn't even a scratch. The evil emperor was in complete disbelief at this terrifying defensive prowess. Even a 9th grade divine seal master wouldn't be able to carve something this powerful, right? It had withstood so many powerful attacks, but there wasn't even a scratch. The evil emperor then arrived in front of the barrier before unleashing a ferocious punch with 80 to 90% of his power. Boom! A terrifying force blasted against the protective shield, and the force quickly rebounded, sending him flying. The power that had been unleashed quickly surged into his body, but before it could injure him, his body shuddered violently, and he remained completely unscathed. Not only is its defensive prowess extremely high, but it can also reflect more than 50% of the power. This is truly inconceivable. The evil emperor was shocked. He had been here for so long, but he had never seen a barrier of this type. He then turned to his subordinates and said coldly, "Which force is this?" Have you received any information about this before? Yes, we have. One of the heavenly spirit gods flew over and gave a simple explanation of this force. So that's how it is. They even ruined our plans. The evil emperor's expression was gloomy. He had never cared about these low-level matters, but he had never thought that he would still run into them. Lord Evil Emperor, why don't we try using the joint formation? One of the heavenly spirit gods suggested. Alright, let's give it a try. The evil emperor looked at the barrier and said coldly, I don't believe that this is really a protection given by the heavens. Even if it's a protection given by the heavens, we will still destroy it. Following that, all the heavenly spirit gods joined forces and formed the evil spirit divine formation. After gathering a terrifying power, they bombarded the barrier in a frenzy. Boom boom boom, following a series of attacks, the entire barrier tremored violently. However, in the next instant, bursts of power quickly bounced back and scattered their formation. Even a powerful being at the pinnacle of the upper heavenly god stage would not be able to withstand such violent power. However, this barrier was able to withstand it, and it wasn't even cracked in the slightest. Again. The evil emperor waved a hand to signal for them to try again. I'll give it another try as the main force this time. This time, he was the main force, so he was the main force. After being the main force, they became even more cohesive. All of the heavenly spirit gods' power quickly surged toward the evil emperor, following which the evil emperor clapped his hands together and launched an attack. Breakthrough. Boom. An extremely thick pillar of black light seemed to be able to engulf this entire divine realm. The space around it was quickly engulfed, and it became even darker, as if anyone who approached it would be engulfed by this boundless darkness. In the end, the pillar of black light crashed into the barrier, and the hearts of the heavenly god Misfortune and the others rose to their throats as they trembled uncontrollably. It's not going to break, is it? All of them were feeling extremely fearful. In contrast, Yi Tianyun remained completely calm. This was a barrier given to him by the system, and it was absolute. No one could break through it. Unless he broke through it himself, there was no way it could be broken. Boom! The terrifying power caused the barrier to cave in slightly before being repelled again. The more powerful the attack, the more ferocious the rebound would be. Chapter 1661. The attacks of the evil emperor were all reflected back. Not all of them, but at least half of them were reflected back. This made them panic. They knew how powerful their attacks were. If they were reflected back, even if they didn't die, they would be crippled. Steady. Block this attack. The evil emperor roared. He told the other Empyrean gods to stabilize their formation. Then, with their fastest speed, they launched another joint attack. Boom! The terrifying black light beam shot out, shattering the reflected black light beam. It turned into countless black dots and dissipated. However, the power of their attacks was clearly stronger. They pierced through the reflected attack and continued to attack the barrier. Dong! The black light beam hit the barrier, but the result was the same. It was still rebounded and continued to attack them. The evil emperor's face sank. He gathered his power again, but this time, he didn't release a very powerful attack. Instead, he released an attack that just happened to cancel out the incoming power. After the two collided, they vanished into thin air. After a few fierce attacks, with the support of the evil emperor, even a peak Empyrean god couldn't withstand it. However, after a few attacks, the barrier was completely fine. Forget about being destroyed, there wasn't even a crack. The terrifying defensive power made them all dumbfounded. They had heard that it was a barrier given by the heavens. Now, it seemed like it was true. Although they were strong, no matter how strong they couldn't be stronger than the power of the entire world gathered here. Unless they surpassed everything and reached a higher level, which was the level of god emperors. However, they were still Empyrean gods. To the heavens, they were still mortals. Under such circumstances, they couldn't break the barrier no matter what. Of course, if they continued to attack, they might still have a chance to break it. However, they didn't know how long it would take. This defense is too terrifying. It seems like it really is a gift from the heavens, allowing this faction to obtain such a powerful defense to protect its existence. I've never seen this before. It seems like this god realm is very special. Lord Evil Emperor, what should we do now? We can't break in. They looked at the Evil Emperor and listened to his orders. If the Evil Emperor wanted them to continue attacking, they could only do so. If this continues, it will cause too much trouble. I can only choose another method. The Evil Emperor quickly flew to the side of the barrier and released his divine sense into it to control Huan Mingyue and have her quickly return. Perhaps they couldn't enter, but that didn't mean Huan Mingyue couldn't come out. After the Vile Emperor released his divine sense, it quickly seeped through. However, by the time he passed through the barrier, most of his divine sense had disappeared. It was incredibly difficult for him to pass through. This was a very difficult process, and the Evil Emperor's expression changed. This barrier can even block divine will for so long. Let's hope it's not too far away. The Evil Emperor quickly penetrated inside, and the situation of the surrounding planets entered his eyes. However, this was meaningless. These planets were all very ordinary, and there was no key point. He just took a casual look and continued to penetrate forward. Right now, he just wanted the Nether Illusion Moon. The rest had nothing to do with him. However, it didn't take long before he couldn't penetrate any further and could only withdraw. Damn it, I'm completely blocked outside. The Evil Emperor was so angry that he punched the barrier. He had used up so much mind power, but he couldn't even find anyone. He couldn't even see what they looked like, and he was completely blocked outside. Yi Tianyun was clearly too vigilant. This barrier didn't just have shocking defense, it also had shocking divine sense blocking abilities. Even though the Evil Emperor could go through, the consumption was shocking. Not only did he enter very little, but the consumption was even more shocking. In just a short while, he had already used up most of his mind power. From this, one could see how powerful this barrier was. Lord Evil Emperor, what should we do now? They looked at each other. An army had been mobilized, but the result was so tragic. There were so many experts, but they couldn't even trample over a faction. Thinking about it, it was really laughable. Start looking for a weakness here. Keep looking until you find it. Or trap them here. I don't believe that they won't come out for the rest of their lives. The Evil Emperor was about to explode from anger. Huan Mingyue was such an important existence, and it had been snatched away just like that. How could he be willing to leave? Even if they all left later, they would leave behind a group of experts to guard here to the death. They would see when the barrier disappeared, or if they saw anyone coming out, they would capture them all. If he didn't do this, he really had no way to vent the anger in his heart. Huan Mingyue had escaped, and Si Shiling, who had the power of evil spirits, hadn't been captured. This made him feel incomparably angry. His original beautiful idea was shattered just like that. Just as he was thinking about how to set up a trap, a terrifying beam of light suddenly blasted out from inside, carrying with it a five-colored light, engulfing everything. Boom! The Evil Emperor dodged at an extremely fast speed, but there were some Empyreans and Empyreans behind him who didn't dodge. They didn't even have time to react before they were hit by this cannon. They didn't even have time to scream before a group of experts turned into dust in the void. What kind of attack is this? They were all dumbfounded. Their companions were blasted into pieces in the blink of an eye. This ultimate attack was comparable to the strongest power of a lower Empyrean god. Ordinary Empyrean gods would be easily killed if they were hit. Nice! Within the three realms, Yi Tianyun unleashed a mortal realm cannon, which was an attack from the five elemental core. There was a very long cooldown time, but it was quickly cooled down before he unleashed a ferocious barrage of attacks. However, after unleashing this attack, it would enter a dormant state and would need to replenish its energy before it could unleash another attack. What a pity! There are many powerful beings on the other side, but this isn't the end. You've all come here as guests, so I have to treat you well. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed, and he quickly condensed a light elemental core. The 7th grade core began to glow with dazzling light as it accumulated power in a frenzy. After accumulating power for a while, the entire 3 realms planet began to light up as if it had transformed into a dazzling sun. Heavenly God Misfortune and the others were all dumbstruck. They didn't think that this planet would be able to unleash such terrifying power. They were all standing beside Yi Tianyun, including Shi Shuiyun. Shi Shuiyun had known about this place a long time ago as Yi Tianyun had brought her here before. Yi Tianyun sat on the throne and controlled all of the mechanisms here. Chapter 1662. The sudden attack caused many evil spirit races to be frightened. The power was not very strong, but it was mainly because it was too sudden, causing them to be unable to react in time. Normally, their spiritual senses would cover a large area, so they would immediately know if there was an attack. It was different now. With the protection of the barrier, they didn't even have time to react. As a result, even a middle-level heavenly god was killed by the attack of a lower-level heavenly god. If they were caught off guard, they would still be blasted to death. Normally, this attack wouldn't cause too much damage to them. Especially since they didn't even use the awakening crystal. Before they could unleash most of their power, they had already become true cannon fodder. Damn it, this attack is too sudden. I didn't expect there to be such an attack inside. The evil emperor's expression became even more unsightly. In the blink of an eye, a wave of people had died on his side, and they were completely in a passive state. Not only were they unable to attack in, but they were also unable to attack right now. This was simply a humiliation. Lord Evil Emperor, I wonder how many more attacks there are. Should we retreat? One of the evil spirit heavenly gods suggested. They were unable to sense the direction of the attack. If they stayed here, they would become living targets. Unless they moved a little further away and hid in a corner, they might be able to avoid this attack. Let's find a place to hide first, then we'll make plans. The evil emperor did not plan to leave. If he did not even leave anything behind, it would be too humiliating. Many of the evil spirit race nodded, agreeing with this suggestion. It was better than just standing here foolishly, right? Just as they were about to leave, a terrifying white pillar of light pierced through, covering an even wider area. It could be said that they were all enveloped by it. The dazzling white light instantly turned this place into day, completely illuminating this pitch-black space. Light attribute attack, their faces were pale. To them, this was their nemesis. If they were attacked, they would definitely suffer heavy losses. However, in an instant, they quickly consumed the awakening crystal and completely unleashed their power. This time, they were more vigilant, so they were still able to react a little. However, it was only a little. They could only passively defend and not counterattack. The power of the awakening instantly erupted, and all sorts of arms and wings erupted. A pitch-black energy enveloped this world, and even collided with the white light that enveloped them, resisting each other. Boom! The white light continued to fiercely cover them, and all the evil spirit race's vision was filled with white light, making them unable to see anything. When the white light gradually disappeared, another half of his companions had disappeared. This time, even though they were prepared, they still lost less than half of them. The Sky Sovereign level evil spirit race were all killed in battle. There were only a small number of lesser heavenly gods left, and their losses were just as disastrous. They also lost quite a few intermediate Empyrean gods, but the upper Empyrean gods were able to handle it. Most importantly, this was an attack from an intermediate celestial god. Even if he was suppressed, he would still be able to withstand quite a bit of it if the other party were to go all out. Especially when attacking so many experts at the same time, the effect would definitely be scattered. Ah, what kind of damned force is this? How could they have this kind of attack? The evil emperor was about to go crazy. They could only take a beating, but they couldn't kill their way in. This feeling was just too stifling. In the past, he had always crushed his way through, and no force could withstand his offensive. Now, they were the ones being beaten up. If they didn't hide quickly, the next attack would definitely come. They didn't know how many more attacks like this could be launched. Although they could withstand it, they didn't dare to continue enduring this kind of attack. Who knew if it would continue to increase in power? At the very least, this attack was a lot more powerful than the first one. Heavenly God Misfortune and the others were all astonished by the effects of this attack. This kind of scattered attack, after being ejected, still had such a shocking effect, it really surprised them. What a powerful attack! This is most likely the work of the Divine Spirit Tribe. Only the Divine Spirit Tribe can have such mastery in this area. Heavenly God Misfortune and the others sighed with emotion. Even the Fecta Sacred Realm couldn't compare to the Divine Spirit Tribe in this area. The Fecta Sacred Realm only had some mastery in some new things, but when it came to Divine Seals, the Divine Spirit Tribe was still the most powerful. The Divine Spirit Tribe's mastery in the field of Divine Seals was undeniably powerful. Now, they had finally witnessed the true power of the Divine Spirit Tribe. After being imbued with a powerful Divine Seal, it possessed unparalleled power. That's right, this is the mastery of the Divine Spirit Tribe. This area originally belonged to the Divine Spirit Tribe, but I've become the ruler of the Divine Spirit Tribe. Tianyun smiled and didn't hide anything. It should be said that they had already guessed one thing. Only the Divine Spirit Tribe could obtain the head of the evil spirits. As such, there was no need to hide anything. In any case, they had already guessed it, so there was no point in hiding anything. As expected. Even though they had already guessed it, they were still shocked. The Divine Spirit Tribe had set up such a large formation on this planet. From the outside, it really didn't look like there was anything wrong with it. Let's continue to pursue them before they recover. Tianyun's eyes flashed, and the throne in his hand continued to emit light. However, this time, the light it emitted was a dark-type power. After the 5 elemental cores were used up, it was time for the light core. Now that the light core had been used up, it was naturally time for the dark core to explode. Under its frenzied operation, the dark core began to unleash its greatest power. He could have stacked the evil spirit's pearl, but he didn't want to do that. If he stacked the evil spirit's pearl, then it would be exposed. Even though the other party would definitely have their eyes on them, it was better not to expose some things. It was better to hide what should be hidden. Moreover, even if he used the evil spirit's pearl to attack, the power would not be able to instantly kill the evil emperor and the other powerful beings, so he might as well hide it. Outside the barrier, the evil emperor and his subordinates quickly fled into the distance. They wanted to hide far away from this god realm of the 3 realms. Even though it was humiliating, staying there wasn't as simple as being humiliated. They would be completely wiped out. Just as they were about to quickly escape to a nearby planet to hide, a swath of darkness suddenly appeared in the void in front of them and swept toward them, wrapping them inside. Darkness was just that mysterious. It was so mysterious that they were caught off guard. This was the power of the 3rd cannon blast, Void Explosion. A power that was even darker than theirs swept toward them, annihilating everything it came into contact with. Even the small planets nearby were turned into ashes when they were touched. The intermediate heavenly god who had rushed at the front didn't even have time to scream before he was quickly turned into ashes. At the same time, he was swallowed by the darkness. Chapter 1663. The terrifying explosion in the void had already reached the level of a upper heavenly god. However, it was only an early stage attack and had not reached the late stage. Unless it was supported by the evil spirit's orb, it might not be able to have a higher level of power. Without the support of the evil spirit's orb, it was already quite amazing to be able to have such terrifying power. Moreover, the area it covered was very wide, almost all of the evil spirit races were enveloped within. The evil spirit heavenly god that was flying in front was the first to be killed. Some of them reacted and quickly blocked. Including the evil emperor, he didn't hesitate to attack the void explosion, wanting to use attack against attack to disperse this power. Not only to protect himself, but also to protect his subordinates. After the void explosion ended, only the upper heavenly gods would survive. Even among the upper heavenly gods, 2 of them had already died. 2 of the most expensive upper heavenly god had died. The middle and lower heavenly gods were all dead, and those that were brought with them were all dead. Although the evil emperor didn't bring elites this time, their potential wasn't bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought them with him. Now, other than the upper heavenly god, the rest were all dead. This level of lethality was simply too terrifying, so terrifying that even Yi Tianyun felt extremely shocked. Unfortunately, the cooldown time was very long. Each of them had a cooldown time of several decades, or even 100 years. The main problem was still the energy problem. Only under the corresponding cooldown time would the energy gap be filled up. Thus, even if Yi Tianyun smashed all sorts of cooling divine level stones, it wouldn't be very meaningful. After all, what he needed was energy, not cooldown time. Unless he smashed all sorts of cores in and let these cores absorb and fill up, he would naturally be able to use them immediately. As a result, he could only fire out 3 shots right now. He couldn't fire any more unless he kept smashing the core. However, even if he smashed the core and was able to use it immediately, it wouldn't be of much use to the remaining experts, and its power would be rather limited. The rest were all extremely powerful existences. This kind of attack didn't have much effect on them. Those who could be effective were all dead now. The power is too strong. They've basically all been cleaned up, and the experience has increased explosively. Yi Tianyun was overjoyed. This was the effect he wanted. The experience he had gained was enough for him to level up. However, he didn't want to level up for the time being. When he wanted to level up, he would naturally level up. Since he couldn't use it for the time being, there was no need to play around like this. Moreover, he could lure the other party. He had always liked to keep a low profile so that the other party would think that he was weak and could easily deal with him. He took advantage of this situation to win every battle. Sinister was indeed a little sinister, but against these guys, this little bit of sinister was nothing. How terrifying! No wonder you said you weren't afraid of the evil monarch bringing powerful beings with him. Not only were you unable to break through the defenses, many of your powerful beings died. Heavenly God Misfortune and the others were completely flabbergasted. They were extremely elated by this outcome. It's alright. It's just that this move can't be used frequently. It takes a long time for me to recover. Yi Tianyun felt that it was quite a pity. If he could blast it out continuously, he would really be invincible. No one could stop him from conquering all the way. If I could use it frequently, who would dare to stop you? The heavenly goddess Luck rolled her eyes. Possessing such terrifying strength and yet being unable to break in, the god realm of the 3 realms was invincible in their eyes. The evil monarch was the best example. The arrogant evil monarch had been forced to flee in a sorry state. The evil monarch couldn't even enter the god realm of the 3 realms, let alone die. If news of this battle were to spread, the entire god realm would be shaken. No one would dare to underestimate Yi Tianyun's force. Even the Yuelong god realm didn't want to befriend weaker god realms. If news of this battle were to spread, it would be hard to say who would be relying on whom. In particular, if Yi Tianyun didn't disclose the cooldown time, everyone would probably think that he would be able to unleash it again after a short period of time. Just as everyone was rejoicing, the evil monarch and the others had already retreated far enough away. However, they still didn't dare to let their guard down. Who knew if an attack would suddenly appear in front of them? All of the subordinates I brought with me have died. The evil monarch's eyes were cold to the extreme, and he was extremely cowardly. He hadn't suffered any serious injuries, but all of his subordinates had died, and they were fleeing in a sorry state. This wasn't his style at all. It was the first time in history that he had been so cowardly. The other heavenly gods were rather dispirited, clearly caused by the 3 attacks. Lord Evil Spirits, I really can't take this lying down. I'm willing to stand guard here and wait for them to come out. If they come out, I'll kill them. Or forcefully control them so that I can learn all of their secrets. One of the heavenly god elders stood up. They had always been high and mighty, and now that they were in such a sorry state, how could they just run away like this? I'm also willing to do the same. I'll stand guard here. I don't believe that this barrier will last forever. That's right. At the same time, check out the situation here and see if there's any way to break it. None of them wanted to leave. They wanted to stay here and defend to the death. All right. The evil monarch said coldly, then I'll leave this place to you. I'll go take a look by myself. I want to see if they can still use this kind of attack. This kind of attack definitely can't be used frequently. If they can, I'll exhaust them. The evil monarch didn't want to stay here any longer. He wanted to observe the surroundings from a close distance and find some flaws. His cultivation was the strongest, so this kind of attack was useless against him. That was why he could wander around willfully. The rest of the evil spirit heavenly god nodded and didn't say anything. A few of them flew to other areas, wanting to surround the three realms' divine realm without any blind spots. Even if a fly flew out, they would be able to know. After all, they were really about to explode from anger. If they didn't flatten this force, they would really be unwilling. Especially after this matter spread out, they would lose even more face. The evil spirit race had always been known for being domineering and cruel. If they didn't take revenge, they would be known for being cowardly. Following closely behind, the evil monarch quickly flew back to the front of the three realms' divine realm. He circled around along the way, wanting to see where the weaker ones were so that he could break through them. However, not long after he flew, a figure appeared in front of the evil monarch, but it was separated by a barrier. Evil monarch, you coming to my force as a guest has truly brought light to my small force. Chapter 1664. Yi Tianyun suddenly appeared in front of the Vile Emperor, a grin on his face. He wasn't worried that the Vile Emperor would attack him at all. After all, there was a thick barrier in front of him. He didn't need to worry about the Vile Emperor attacking him at all. You are the ruler of this place. The Vile Emperor looked Yi Tianyun up and down. That's right. I am the ruler of this place. Why have you come to my divine realm, Vile Emperor? Yi Tianyun smiled. The Vile Emperor naturally didn't recognize him, and Empyrean god Skysurge wasn't here either. They naturally didn't know who he was. As for the top 5 on the blacklist, the Vile Emperor didn't know much either. In the end, he didn't care about such trivial matters. What he needed to do was very simple. He needed to find a way to break through this barrier and become a god emperor. It was as simple as that. He didn't need to worry about anything else. Not only did he not know about the blacklist, but he also didn't know about the existence of such a bizarre divine realm. Did my race hide in your divine realm? I don't know what he's offering you, but if you let me in and capture them, I'll give you 10 times the reward. The Vile Emperor couldn't enter, so he had to try to lure him in. There were quite a few divine realms that would be willing to pay for such a low-level method. Yi Tianyun wasn't an idiot. Regardless of how much the reward was, the Vile Emperor would definitely flatten his organization once he entered. If I let the evil spirit race in, my organization will probably be devoured by you, right? Yi Tianyun smiled. How is that possible? I definitely won't harm your people. All you have to do is hand them over. A murderous look flashed through the Vile Emperor's eyes. Yi Tianyun had killed so many of his people. If he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't have any face left. Is that so? I don't believe you unless you swear an oath. Yi Tianyun pointed at him. Swear. The Vile Emperor's face sank. If he really did swear an oath and broke it, even he would be in trouble. Perhaps he wouldn't die if he broke the oath, but he would be heavily injured. That wouldn't be a good thing. In particular, he had not even managed to do much before he would be devoured by the oath. When that happened, he would not even be able to attack. What, you don't want to? Yi Tianyun squinted at him and said. I am the dignified evil emperor. How could I casually make an oath? The evil emperor said coldly. Then you can make your other subordinates swear an oath. There won't be any difference, right? Yi Tianyun smiled and said, just let them bring the resources in, then I'll let you catch them. How about that? Yi Tianyun offered a compromise. If the evil emperor was unwilling to swear an oath, then he would have his subordinates do it. There was no problem with that. The evil emperor's expression was unsightly. He definitely wasn't willing to swear an oath. If he made the vow, he wouldn't be able to deal with Yi Tianyun. That was why he was so unwilling to make the vow. Now that Yi Tianyun had proposed such a method, he didn't know what to do. After thinking for a while, he finally nodded his head and said, all right, but the people hiding inside you are not weak. I need to send at least 2 of them in, how about it? Of course not a problem, but the reward has to be doubled, that is, 20 times. Yi Tianyun extended 2 fingers and said with a smile, you're the one who said this, so you have to double the reward. Greedy human. The evil emperor cursed in his heart, feeling that Yi Tianyun was too greedy. His expression did not reveal any disgust, and still maintained an indifferent expression. Then tell me, what are their conditions? I'll give you 20 times the reward. The reward they gave was very simple. A 7th grade core, a heavenly god spirit treasure, and a pile of materials. I don't ask for much, just give me 20 times the reward for the first 2. Yi Tianyun said with a smile. What? The evil emperor's eyes widened. A 7th grade core and a heavenly god spirit treasure. Both of them were relatively expensive items. If you were to increase it by 20 times, that would be 20 7th grade cores and 20 heavenly god spirit treasures. This was simply a huge pit. What, could it be that Lord Evil Emperor can't take it out? Yi Tianyun laughed and said, of course, no matter what the 7th grade core's attribute is, as long as it's a 7th grade core, it's fine. The evil emperor immediately wanted to kill him. He had asked for too much from the start, but it was not wrong. If Huan Mingyu offered this kind of price, it would not be a problem. It was just that the multiple he offered was too high, and the conversion was too terrifying. There are too many, I can't take them out in a short time. Especially a 7th grade core, do you think it's cabbage that you can take out so easily? The evil emperor said in a deep voice. It's fine, I can wait. We'll talk about it when you take it out. Yi Tianyun waved his hand, and a table appeared in front of him. He sat down and started drinking. He had plenty of time, so he was not in a hurry. The evil emperor's expression became more and more unsightly. It was obvious that he would not be able to enter without bringing the treasures. How about this, I'll give you half the reward. As for the 7th grade core, I really don't have much. I can only take out 5, but I have a dozen or so heavenly god spirit treasures. I'll use this to make up for it. After I capture the person, I'll give the rest. How about it? The evil emperor's eyes flashed, and he could only grit his teeth and give it out. After drinking a cup of wine, Yi Tianyun smiled and said, no problem, I won't drag things out. I'll give you this reward first. You can call someone over to make the oath. I'll wait here. All right. The evil emperor nodded and immediately contacted the heavenly god elders. In the blink of an eye, several of them came over. After explaining the situation, the elders immediately knew what was going on. These are the 2 I want to send in. The evil emperor immediately chose 2 upper heavenly gods. Their cultivation is too high. Can you send a bit lower? With such high cultivation, I'm a bit afraid. Yi Tianyun grinned. The evil emperor suppressed his anger and gritted his teeth. Fine, then lower. I'll send these 2. He then sent out 2 mid-heavenly gods. At the same time, he said, you can't get any lower, or you won't be able to capture the person. Huan Mingyue's cultivation wasn't low, so if they wanted to capture him, they had to be high. Fine, then make the oath. Yi Tianyun waved his hand and indicated for them to make the oath. The evil emperor nodded and indicated for them to make the oath. The two elders nodded and also made the oath. I, Samet, Suafei, swear that I will not harm any life in the three realms God realm. I only want to capture Si Weiling and Huan Mingyue. I won't touch anything else. If I break this oath, I will suffer divine punishment. Boom! The sky immediately flashed with lightning. They were also bound by this oath. There were no exceptions. Chapter 1665. The oath has been made. I've already placed the reward in this storage space. As for the rank 7 core, it's too big. It's not easy to place it, so I've placed it in another independent storage space. The cores were too big and took up a lot of storage space. They couldn't be too small, so they had to expand it to be able to hold them. This kind of storage space was extremely rare. Not everyone could have one. The best way to hold the core was to put it in the inner world. But the evil emperor didn't go in, so he put it in the storage space. As for bringing it in for the two elders, that wasn't suitable either. There were too many. Even heavenly gods couldn't easily hold the cores. It would easily cause chaos. At most, one person could only hold one. They really couldn't carry more. No problem. You can come in now. Yi Tianyun waved his hand, indicating that they could come in. The two elders nodded their heads at each other and slowly walked into the room. When they touched the barrier slowly opened, allowing the two evil spirit elders to enter. At that moment, the evil emperor's eyes turned cold. He quickly turned into a black light and charged in. Boom! The two elders were ruthlessly sent flying in. As for him, he was sent flying out. His entire body was knocked senseless. Lord Evil Emperor, don't be so anxious. They just walked a little slower. Why are you in such a rush? Yi Tianyun looked at the two heavenly gods who were sent flying. Their injuries weren't heavy, but they were still a little injured. The evil emperor wanted to charge in when they opened the entrance. It was as if he had passed through them. However, the situation wasn't that simple. The barrier sent the evil emperor flying. Not only did he not come in, but he also knocked himself out. Seeing the evil emperor in such a sorry state, Yi Tianyun smiled. He knew that the evil emperor didn't have good intentions. How could he not guess what the evil emperor was thinking? Don't forget that this was the heaven's barrier. How could they just barge in? There shouldn't be so many loopholes. After the evil emperor was sent flying, he felt a little better. His face was ashen. He didn't think that the barrier didn't have such a loophole. Looking at the mocking expression on Yi Tianyun's face, his heart was about to explode from anger. Clearly, he knew that his plan would fail. It's fine. I just want to test how sturdy this shield is. The vile emperor pretended to be testing it to regain some face. At the same time, he sent a sound transmission to the two elders, hurry up and find Huan Mingyue. And that brat, capture him as well. Hurry up at all costs. The vile emperor roared. His powerful divine will pierced through the shield, and was able to reach the elders who were closer to him. The two elders swore that they could only obediently go down and grab Huan Mingyue. The other cultivators could not be touched at all. Wait a minute, where's my reward? Yi Tianyun waved his hand, gesturing for them to take out their reward. The two evil spirit elders had no choice but to obediently hand over the items. They could only give the rewards that they deserved. The vile emperor watched from the side and cursed in his heart, I don't believe that this shield won't disappear. What a greedy human. But this kind of human is easy to deal with. I'll make you spit it out sooner or later. The vile emperor felt very sullen, but he could still accept this price in exchange for Huan Mingyue. After all, Huan Mingyue was a part of his plan. If Huan Mingyue didn't come back, then the plan would be put on hold. This was not something he wanted to see. After receiving the reward, Yi Tianyun grinned at them and said, "Since you've received the reward, then go to hell." In the next second, Yi Tianyun didn't hesitate to explode with his strongest power. He activated crazy mode and Effecta Divine Fan appeared in his hand. No matter what, this Effecta Divine Fan was equivalent to an upper-level heavenly venerable. Under the ferocious fan, sharp wind blades shot out, tearing through the void. Because it was too sudden, one of the evil spirit heavenly gods didn't even have time to react and was cut into two by this attack. At the same time, Yi Tianyun waved his hand again and cut the evil spirit heavenly god into several pieces, completely killing a middle-level heavenly god. Ding! Successfully killed evil spirit heavenly god, late-stage middle-level heavenly god. Obtained experience, the familiar voice sounded again, but not as frequently as before. Before, it could be said to be quite frequent, even described as crazy. After all, with a fierce shot, most of the evil spirit heavenly gods would be turned into ashes, and the lowest level would be at the heavenly venerable level. That experience could be said to be explosive, which made him feel very satisfied. Now, it was much worse, so he could only kill them one by one. You violated the oath. One of the evil spirit heavenly gods was furious. He didn't expect Yi Tianyun to sneak attack. Violated the oath? Did I make any oath? Yi Tianyun smiled. He didn't make an oath from the beginning. They also didn't think of making Yi Tianyun make an oath. The reason was very simple. Yi Tianyun's cultivation was too low. He was at the late-stage middle-level heavenly venerable level. However, the truth was so cruel. The incomparably powerful heavenly god was killed just like that, as if he was cutting melons and vegetables. Kill him! The evil emperor roared from outside, although you didn't make an oath, since the other party attacked, you can also attack. Although the evil spirit heavenly god didn't make an oath and said that if the other party attacked, they could also counterattack. However, even if they didn't make this oath, they could still counterattack. The oath wasn't absolute, and it wasn't that rigid. It was impossible for them to say that they would never attack. If the other party suddenly launched a sneak attack, it would be equivalent to tearing up the oath. Roar! The remaining evil spirit heavenly god roared angrily and swallowed the awakening crystal without hesitation, exploding with his strongest power. He wanted to use his strongest power to completely crush Yi Tianyun. In the blink of an eye, 12 arms burst forth, along with 4 wings. It was extremely eye-catching. This was the awakening power of a heavenly god, but Yi Tianyun was tired of looking at it. Of course, this power was still very pressurizing for him. With such a huge gap in cultivation, it was naturally not easy to deal with him. However, he did not level up immediately. Instead, he turned to another method to improve himself. Power of faith, explode. Yi Tianyun grinned. He looked at the evil spirit elder who was dashing towards him as though he was looking at a little bird. Ding! 50 faith points deducted. Damage increased by 50 times. Duration, 1 minute. This power of faith can increase the effect of a battle by 5 to 100 times. Consuming 50 points can increase one's combat power by 50 times. This meant that under the crazy damage mode, it would be 128 times, stacked with 50 times, which would be 178 times the damage. Chapter 1666. Under the superposition of various powers, his battle prowess increased crazily, reaching more than 190 times his original battle prowess. But this was not the end, there was still the bonus of the weapon, in addition to the bonus of the godly skill. Under these bonuses, the total explosive power reached more than 200 times the original height. Actually, he could still explode with even stronger power. For example, the power of faith could increase his battle prowess by another 50 times. But he did not do so, suppressing the opponent in front of him. He did not even need to explode with all his strength, he only needed to explode with 50 times his battle prowess, and that would be enough to suppress the opponent. Boom! After exploding, a terrifying aura soared into the sky, even if the opponent had the power of a heavenly god, as the domain lord here, he still had the power to suppress them. After all, with the superposition of many titles, even a middle-level heavenly god would have to kneel in front of him. Such strong power. The evil spirit elder who was rushing forward was shocked. He could clearly feel that Tianyun gave him a strong sense of danger, which meant that his explosive power could not compare to the opponent. But now, he could only choose to fight with his life, or else he would have come in for nothing. Dark Devour. The evil spirit elder roared, opened his hand, and endless power of darkness surged up, surrounding Tianyun. But the devouring power of darkness was still unable to wrap around Tianyun's dazzling white light. A sharp white light cut through the void, piercing through the endless darkness, and finally pierced through the evil spirit elder, turning him into a pile of ashes. He was completely burned into ashes by the dazzling white light, reaching the level of instant kill. This was the power of faith, purification. The terrifying purification could purify all objects, and thus easily purify the evil spirit elder's power of darkness. After killing him, Tianyun quickly stopped the power of faith. The time was less than a minute. The battle was a race against time. In a situation where the power was suppressed, victory and defeat could be determined in a few short seconds. If he did not stop using it, it would continue to consume faith value. Faith value was not that easy to obtain. It was rather precious. Really too strong. Tianyun couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. In this place, he was truly a god. With the superimposed strength, he had almost reached the level of killing Buddhas and gods. However, he didn't dare to be careless. He didn't dare to casually let others in. If he didn't save them in time, they would be in trouble. Their cultivation bases were too low, and they didn't even have the ability to block a single move. After the battle, Tianyun was very satisfied. Not only did he get a lot of rewards, he also got to plunder so many treasures. How could he not be satisfied? Most importantly, he was able to harvest experience points from 2 intermediate heavenly gods, which made him even more satisfied. All of the intermediate heavenly gods had been killed, but who would have thought that there would be reinforcements? This was out of his expectations. It seemed like they were reinforcements from behind, hiding in the surroundings to keep an eye on this side. The upper heavenly gods still had things to do, so it was enough to leave these things to some middle heavenly gods. You damned human, you don't keep your word. The evil emperor roared from outside the barrier, and even extended his hand to punch the barrier, causing a dong-dong sound to ring out. However, the barrier could not be broken, so he could only roar from outside. He never thought that Tianyun would have such terrifying strength. Even 2 great heavenly gods were killed in an instant. No wonder a god was allowed to enter. If it was a upper heavenly god, it would be more difficult to deal with him. It would be easier to deal with a middle heavenly god. Facing a upper heavenly god, Tianyun would indeed find it difficult to deal with him. The difference between an upper heavenly god and a middle heavenly god was too great. Even if he erupted with the power of faith, it would still be extremely difficult to deal with them. In order to be on the safe side, it was naturally fine to let a middle heavenly god in. Trustworthy? I wonder who was the one who wanted to rush in and talk to me about trustworthiness. Tianyun laughed coldly. If I had really let you rush in, I reckon that I would have died miserably in your hands long ago, and my power would have been completely flattened by you. It's not your turn to say that I'm not trustworthy. Tianyun's retort made the evil emperor unable to refute him. Of course, even if the evil emperor didn't do this, he would have killed the 2 heavenly gods. This was the plan from the very beginning. To deal with the evil spirit race, you still need to keep your word. Whoever kept their word would be an idiot. The evil spirit race was the race that didn't keep their word the most. If they still talked about trustworthiness with them, then they would truly be an idiot. You humans are not only greedy, but also untrustworthy. The evil emperor spat out angrily, don't even think about coming out in this lifetime. As long as you or your subordinates come out, kill them all and leave none alive. Greed? That's also because I'm greedy, idiot. Yi Tianyun mocked, towards you, the main culprits of the divine emperor, why should I be polite? It's even more idiotic for me to keep my promise to you. What happened to those who joined your forces back then? You must have made a lot of promises back then, right? In the end, it was all for naught. You even lost your entire force and became cannon fodder. Survival of the fittest. They did things for this emperor, but if they didn't do a good job, this would be their fate. This emperor did not recruit them to raise trash. The evil emperor coldly retorted. Alright, I can't be bothered to talk too much with you. Your mouth is too smelly. Didn't your mother tell you before? Yi Tianyun pinched his nose and waved his hand with a look of disdain. Seeing this, the evil emperor was about to explode from anger. He stared at him with eyes filled with killing intent and said, what a glib tongue, but it's meaningless. From today onwards, your forces will definitely be listed as one of the forces that I will trample. From today onwards, don't even think about coming out. Didn't I come out now? Yi Tianyun stepped out of the barrier, then retracted his foot and looked at him with a mocking expression. The evil emperor's face was ashen. He had never been played like this before. After so many years, who didn't treat him with respect? Now, they were playing with him in all sorts of ways, making him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Good, good, good. I'll let you be arrogant. Let's see how long you can be arrogant for. The evil emperor gritted his teeth and couldn't be bothered to look at Yi Tianyun anymore. He quickly flew towards the other areas. He wanted to circle around this place and see if there were any flaws so that he could break in. Seeing the evil emperor's departing figure, Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed, but the corners of his mouth hooked up into a cold smile. What a joke. I can't wait for more people to be by my side. Unless they are all upper heavenly gods, they are all here to give away experience. Even if they are upper heavenly gods, ordinary upper heavenly gods are probably not enough to fill my teeth. Yi Tianyun was not afraid of the evil emperor's threat at all. It was not easy for others to go out, but he could move as he pleased. Especially when he had joined forces with the Fecta divine realm. When the time came, he would ruthlessly harvest the evil spirit race's vitality. Chapter 1667. Yi Tianyun couldn't be bothered to pay attention to what the evil emperor was doing. He flew back and began to sort through his spoils of war. These are all my spoils of war. I got them from evil emperor said. Yi Tianyun brought out a pile of storage rings, within which were all types of heavenly god spirit treasures, as well as all types of cores. The heavenly god Luck and the others were all speechless at his extravagance. This was definitely the first time they had seen someone plunder the evil emperor, and not only had the evil emperor lost many powerful beings, but he had also lost many treasures. You're way too powerful. Are you really an intermediate heavenly venerate? The heavenly doom god had never seen Yi Tianyun's power before, nor had the heavenly luck god. Both of them were completely dumbstruck when they saw it for themselves. Even they would be unable to withstand such a terrifying power. As such, when Yi Tianyun had first returned, they had all stared at Yi Tianyun repeatedly, trying to glean something from him. However, they were unable to glean anything. He was still an intermediate heavenly venerate without any changes. He didn't have a heavenly god's aura, nor did he have a heavenly god cultivation base, but he was able to kill an intermediate heavenly god. This was truly incredible. None of them had seen Yi Tianyun's power before, and only after witnessing it did they realize that Yi Tianyun wasn't bluffing. They could just leave this force to him to protect. I really am an intermediate heavenly venerate. Can't any of you sense it? Yi Tianyun splayed his hands open with a smile. I can sense it, but I really don't believe it. I'm even wondering if you're hiding your cultivation base. The heavenly luck god looked at him from head to toe, and she wanted nothing more than to grab him and inspect his cultivation base. I really haven't. This is just my cultivation base. Yi Tianyun shrugged in a resigned manner before a smile appeared on his face. I have so many resources here. Do you have any good ideas for me to expand my force? He definitely wasn't going to let the entire 3 realms absorb so many 7th grade cores. That would be far too wasteful. If he wanted to strengthen his own forces, he would definitely have to place them in the various planets. That way, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. We're very good at this, so let us help you. Heavenly God Doom and the others' eyes lit up. They finally had something to do. So many rank 7th grade cores. What a huge investment. After they were built, the God realm of the 3 realms would definitely improve by a large margin. Aside from this core, there were also a bunch of Heavenly God's spirit treasures, which Yi Tianyun generously took out for Heavenly God Luck to pick from. Since they were here to help him, he would definitely not treat them badly. However, none of them wanted it. Although these Heavenly God's spirit treasures were not bad, they did not need them. They all had their own Heavenly God's spirit treasures, so they did not need other Heavenly God's spirit treasures. Moreover, the Heavenly God's spiritual treasures that the heretical emperor had given him were relatively ordinary. How could he possibly give him something good? Even the rank 7 core was given to a smaller one. It could be said that he was extremely stingy. It would be impossible for the heretical emperor to not have any treasures on him. Who knew how many grade 7 cores he had? In fact, he might even have grade 8 cores. As for the grade 9 cores, that was hard to say. Of course, no matter how small they were still grade 7 cores. Their overall level was not low. Since none of you want them, I'll save them for fusing with my own treasures in the future. Yi Tianyun's gaze turned to the Fecta Divine Fan. If he smashed these Heavenly God's spirit treasures, it would recover quite a bit of its power. Following that, he did not hesitate and smashed the Fecta Divine Fan ferociously, throwing a lot of materials at it. This thing was quite good, so it was worth smashing it. After smashing several Heavenly God's spirit treasures, the Fecta Divine Fan quickly recovered. The frame on the surface and the surface of the fan were quickly restored. In the blink of an eye, most of it was restored. These were all Heavenly God's spirit treasures, and they were of such high grade. No matter how weak they were still Heavenly God's spirit treasures. After a round of smashing, it could still recover 50% of its power. Soon, it rushed to the limit of a lower Heavenly God's spirit treasure. If he continued smashing it, it would recover most of its power. It could even recover to its peak upper Heavenly God's spirit treasure. It was just that the price to pay was extremely high. It would require many middle Heavenly God's spirit treasures or upper Heavenly God's spirit treasures to repair it. Just by relying on lower Heavenly God's spirit treasures, it would be very difficult to restore it to its original state. It has become a lower Heavenly God's spirit treasure. Yi Tianyun looked at the Fecta Divine Fan. Its power had greatly increased, but the problem was that he could not really use it. If he wanted to unleash the strongest effect, he naturally needed Heavenly God energy. Right now, he was still a Heavenly Venerate energy, so he could only use half of it. Looks like it's about time. It's time to improve myself. Yi Tianyun thought for a moment. It was better for him to break through to upper Heavenly Venerate. Otherwise, he would not be able to refine upper Heavenly Venerate spirit treasures. Only with 3 Heavenly Venerate spirit treasures of his own would he be able to unleash greater power. He could not stay here forever. If he stayed outside, he would not be able to use the power of faith. Hence, he needed to improve himself. While he still had time, he needed to improve himself and refine upper Heavenly Venerate spirit treasures at the same time. After the heretical emperor left, it would be time for him to start a massacre. Level up. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to upper Heavenly Venerate early stage. After deducting a large chunk of experience, Yi Tianyun broke through to upper Heavenly Venerate cultivation. Actually, he could still continue breaking through, but he did not do so. Suppressing his cultivation was always a good thing. I've finally broken through to upper Heavenly Venerate. Then, let's start refining upper heavenly venerate spirit treasures. Yi Tianyun immediately started throwing in piles of materials and began to nurture upper heavenly venerate spirit treasures. It was not just materials. He even threw in some heavenly venerate spirit treasures. They could also be used as refining materials. In any case, if he threw them in, they could slowly dissolve and then become a part of the materials. It was just that this would be very wasteful. Some things could not be put to good use. But Yi Tianyun was just that rich and overbearing. He casually threw most of the treasures. As long as he could improve, he would not be stingy at all. After a round of smashing, Yi Tianyun sat down on the spot and began to cultivate. The heretical emperor was still circling around outside. After circling around several times, he found that there were no flaws at all. Forget looking for flaws, there was not even a core of the array. Is this the blessing of the heavens? Just how did they get it? The heretical emperor's face twitched. Looks like I can only slow down the plan. Damn it, why did such a problem appear at this critical juncture? The heretical emperor angrily punched the barrier, but it bounced back and hit him. Chapter 1668. While the heretical emperor was arranging various plans outside, Yi Tianyun was nurturing the upper-level heavenly venerable spirit treasure, constantly refining it. He had to refine a peak upper-level heavenly venerable spirit treasure. After all, he still needed a very long time to break through to the heavenly god stage. Although he could level up now and reach a higher level, breaking through from late-stage upper-level heavenly venerable to the heavenly god stage still required a considerable amount of experience. Of course, if he killed dozens of heavenly gods, or even hundreds of heavenly gods, then this would become very simple. After nurturing for a period of time, finally, the upper-level heavenly venerable spirit treasure in his body gradually took shape. Gradually, it condensed into a pair of shoes. The third heavenly venerable spirit treasure that Yi Tianyun condensed was not some weapon, nor was it some armor, but a pair of shoes. In the eyes of others, this was truly an inconceivable thing. He actually went to refine a pair of shoes instead of refining anything. Rise for me. Yi Tianyun shouted, and this pair of shoes flew out of his inner world, landing firmly in his palm. What came into view was a pair of extremely detailed shoes, carved with dragon patterns, and also like several giant dragons twining around them. Normally, one look and one would know that this pair of shoes was extremely domineering. It was just that to most cultivators, this was too much of a loss. They would rather refine a weapon than a pair of shoes. The true method of output was often weapons. What kind of power could shoes provide? 5 Dragon Divine Travel Boots. Yi Tianyun was not anyone else. He naturally had his own ideas for the things he refined. After refining it, he immediately gave it a resounding name. Without a doubt, this was a complete set of equipment. Weapons, wrist guards, and boots could all become a set of equipment, all equipment with 5 dragons carved on them. If they were combined, it would definitely have an extremely strong effect. Not bad. Yi Tianyun looked carefully for a while and felt rather satisfied. This was definitely his current highest standard. Compared to a lower-level heavenly god spirit treasure, it was not inferior at all. Immediately, he put it on. After familiarizing himself with it, he felt very satisfied. Refined bit by himself, it was naturally very suitable for him to use. The other heavenly venerable spirit treasures and heavenly god spirit treasures were ultimately a little less compatible. It's about time. I wonder if evil emperor and the others have left this place. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed. He was waiting for the heretical emperor to leave so that he could go out and start a massacre. With so many fat sheep waiting outside, if he didn't treat them well, he would be letting them down. Soon after, he quickly came to the side of the shield and used his spiritual sense to explore the situation outside. It was difficult for others to probe in, but he could easily probe the situation outside. Under his incomparably valiant spiritual sense, there was no place to hide from his surroundings. This was especially so when he activated the appraisal eye, which allowed him to see even more clearly. He could clearly see who was hiding at the side. As expected, they sent quite a few heavenly gods to hide at the side. Their concealment skills are quite impressive. Yi Tianyun moved to another area and scouted out to roughly determine their location. Soon, he found all of the heavenly gods who were hiding in the vicinity. Overall, there were a total of 8 heavenly gods, 2 of which were higher heavenly gods. This was quite a large number. Originally, they didn't plan to send higher heavenly gods, but after seeing how easily Yi Tianyun killed intermediate heavenly gods, they could only send 2 higher heavenly gods. The rest of the intermediate heavenly gods were just there for scouting purposes and to intercept some reinforcements. They knew that the 3 realms divine realm had reinforcements from other forces. Although they wouldn't attack, they would definitely retaliate if reinforcements came. As for reinforcements, when he came out of seclusion, heavenly goddess Luck came over to ask if he needed help from the Fekta divine realm. Yi Tianyun turned her down and said that he would take care of this himself. If there were any difficulties, he would ask for their help. Since Yi Tianyun had already decided, they could only listen to Yi Tianyun. Then let's start with the weakest. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold, and he quickly disappeared on the spot. Outside, heavenly god Evil Spirit had been cultivating while paying attention to what was happening. Apart from that, they couldn't move at will, so they could only stay here obediently. It was extremely boring. I really don't know when this barrier will disappear. Cultivators inside, hurry up and come out for a stroll. It's so boring. This intermediate heavenly god was extremely bored. He had stayed here for so long, but not even a fly had flown out. It was extremely boring. At this moment, a shadow flashed behind him, but he was completely unaware. Splat! The 5-dragon divine spear pierced through his head, and heavenly god Evil Spirit's body stiffened. By the time he came to his senses, it was already too late. Bam! Heavenly god Evil Spirit's head exploded into a cloud of blood mist just like that. The first one. The person who had appeared behind heavenly god Evil Spirit was naturally Yi Tianyun. The 5-dragon divine movement boots on his feet shimmered with a faint golden light, completely concealing him within space. Combined with his spatial bloodline, it was like a divine weapon for sneak attacks. He didn't need to face them head-on. All he needed to do was launch sneak attacks to easily take care of them. He then stepped forward, and a faint golden light flashed as he disappeared into space again, completely disappearing without a trace. He truly came and went without a trace. In the next instant, Yi Tianyun appeared behind another heavenly god Evil Spirit and launched another sneak attack. All of the heavenly gods seemed to have been possessed, and they didn't even have a chance to react before their heads were pierced through and they were instantly killed. When he killed the 4th heavenly god Evil Spirit, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, and he immediately turned around to discover that there was no one there. That's strange, why do I feel like there's something behind me? Heavenly god Evil Spirit scratched his head as he quickly used his spirit sense to investigate, but he was unable to find anything. What are you looking at? A ghostly voice sounded from behind him. Heavenly god Evil Spirit immediately turned around, only to be greeted by a divine spear that pierced through his head. 5th one, die. Yi Tianyun put away the divine spear as his eyes shimmered. He didn't think that the 5-dragon divine movement boots would be so effective. Combined with the power of the void, it was very difficult for them to detect him. Heavenly god Evil Spirit was able to detect him, but only a tiny bit. Most of them were still unable to detect him, and Yi Tianyun's sneak attack was easily successful. Even he was astonished by the power of such a terrifying sneak attack. However, this was a perfect sneak attack that could only be unleashed with all of his equipment and abilities. It wasn't something that could be brought about by a single pair of shoes. Just a pair of shoes was able to combine all of his abilities and completely amplify them. This was the Fleetfoot step. Chapter 1669. After killing 5 heavenly gods in a row, there were only 3 heavenly gods left. However, 2 of them were upper heavenly gods, and it would undoubtedly be very difficult to deal with them. But before that, Yi Tianyun first finished off the last intermediate heavenly god, and the two upper heavenly gods were left. These two upper heavenly gods had no idea that their subordinates had already been completely wiped out, and not a single one was left. If I don't destroy this organization, I won't be able to take this lying down, but when will this barrier disappear? Duan Rui shook his head. After staying here for a period of time, he began to feel bored. He had never done this kind of thing before. He would just rush over and devour them, instead of squatting here and watching obediently. Not only was this boring, but it was also not his usual style. He had always been straightforward and never hid to watch. He felt a little aggrieved. But this was not only an order from the evil emperor, but also their own thoughts. After all, Yi Tianyun had killed so many of their companions and humiliated them so much. They were really unwilling to leave just like that. Previously, when they were beaten into such a sorry state, they had already sworn to destroy the god realm of the three realms. Thus, they could only fulfill their promise obediently. Duan Rui shook his head and continued to watch from the side. His powerful spiritual awareness covered the entire area, and even a fly could not escape his perception. As he continued to watch the situation, a murderous intent came from behind his head. A strong sense of danger made him quickly turn around and reach out to block it. Pfft! The incomparably sharp spear light directly pierced through his palm, but this bought him a lot of time to dodge. At the same time, the spear light slowed down by a beat, allowing him to quickly retreat and avoid this fatal blow. It's you. After retreating quickly, Duan Rui immediately saw who the sneak attack was. Previously, the evil emperor had allowed him to enter the god realm of the three realms, but Yi Tianyun said that people with such high cultivation were not allowed to enter, so he could only replace him with other members of the evil spirit tribe. Thus, they had all seen Yi Tianyun and had a very deep impression of him. However, after further investigation, he realized that Yi Tianyun was on the blacklist. He immediately felt that his actions were stupid. They did not expect Yi Tianyun to be on the blacklist. What they usually did not bother to ask had led to a huge mistake. If they had known about it earlier, the significance would have been different. They would have definitely paid more attention to it. Now that he knew, it was useless. That's right, it's me. As expected of an upper heavenly god, his perception is much stronger than that of a middle heavenly god. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes. This was not out of his expectations. If upper heavenly gods could be dealt with so easily, they wouldn't be upper heavenly gods. Regardless of whether it was his perception or strength, they were both much stronger than before. Brat, what else can you do besides sneak attacks? When God Duan Rui was talking to Yi Tianyun, he also contacted another companion. Since Yi Tianyun had come out, he definitely couldn't let him go. Idiots, what else do you have other than a high cultivation base? Yi Tianyun retorted with a smile. You're courting death. God Duan Rui was furious and immediately attacked Yi Tianyun. The power of an upper heavenly god burst out. He had seen Yi Tianyun's power. Although it was not very heaven-defying, it was definitely not weak. Therefore, he attacked with 70 to 80% of his strength, wanting to kill Yi Tianyun in one fell swoop. In the face of God Duan Rui's attack, Yi Tianyun did not hesitate to meet it. After a fierce battle, he was sent flying and slightly injured. Even though his cultivation base had broken through, coupled with his crazy damage mode, he still could not kill an upper heavenly god head-on. The gap was still very huge, and he had jumped more than one realm. As expected of an upper heavenly god. Let's go. The 5 dragon godly travel boots under Yi Tianyun's feet swept up a burst of golden light, causing his speed to increase, and he quickly fled to the 3 realms. You still want to leave? God Duan Rui quickly caught up, closing the distance between him and Yi Tianyun bit by bit. Staring at Yi Tianyun's back, his eyes were bloodshot. As long as he killed Yi Tianyun, then the 3 realms god realm would completely collapse. At the same time, he could also make a great contribution and be rewarded by the evil emperor. It would undoubtedly be better if he could capture him alive. Yi Tianyun turned his head to look behind him, his eyes flashing with fear, which made God Duan Rui feel carefree. Where's that arrogant energy from before? You were still suppressed by me. God Duan Rui's speed increased rapidly, and it suddenly increased to the limit. Compared to Yi Tianyun's speed, he was much faster. Soon, he was closing in on Yi Tianyun, and there was only a short distance left before he completely caught up. Yi Tianyun was still a short distance away from the Three Realms shield. As long as he could escape inside, everything would be fine. Yi Tianyun was anxious, and so was God Duan Rui. If Yi Tianyun escaped back, then he would have no chance at all. Beast, don't even think of escaping. God Duan Rui stuffed the awakening crystal into his hand and unleashed all his power, causing his speed to increase sharply again. This caused the distance between them to shorten again. Soon, he was behind Yi Tianyun, and he reached out to grab his shoulder. This time, he planned to capture him alive, not dead. The moment he was about to touch him, Yi Tianyun's speed suddenly increased greatly, and he pulled away a short distance before completely entering the shield. God Duan Rui was infuriated when he saw this, but he did not stop. Instead, he rushed forward angrily. After he rushed over, he did not crash into the shield as he had imagined. Instead, he directly passed through the shield. I'm in. God Duan Rui was overjoyed. He did not expect to be able to enter. Will there be a small loophole when he passes through the shield? Before he could react, Yi Tianyun, who was escaping in front, quickly turned back and stabbed him with the five-dragon divine spear. At this moment, Yi Tianyun seemed to have changed into a different person. His aura increased explosively, and the terrifying power made God Duan Rui's heart tremble. Power of Faith, activate. Activate 100 times damage stacking. When the power of faith was fully activated, it stacked another 100 times damage. Coupled with the crazy damage mode, it was already 228 times the damage, and this was without any additional damage. In an instant, Yi Tianyun's combat power was directly above God Duan Rui's. He was not afraid of God Duan Rui, but he deliberately attracted God Duan Rui here, and then used the power of faith to deal with God Duan Rui. Since he could not deal with him outside, why not drag him back to the Three Realms God Realm? This was his God Realm, his world. Chapter 1670. After the outburst, Yi Tianyun did not waste any time. Without hesitation, he swung his spear and attacked fiercely. With more than 200 times his combat power was extremely terrifying. The five-dragon godly boots on his feet also erupted with full power. The three celestial venerable spiritual treasures connected together, and it was as if he had transformed into a giant dragon. The five-dragon divine spear was the dragon's head, the gauntlet was the dragon's body, and the boots were the dragon's tail. After they were connected, the speed of his sprint increased dramatically, and he charged toward heaven God Duan Rui in one breath. Five-dragon roar. Yi Tianyun immediately used his most powerful technique. Five giant dragons whizzed over and surrounded heaven God Duan Rui. This aura, what's going on? Heaven God Duan Rui felt a chill in his heart. He had seen the scene of Yi Tianyun killing his companions before, but his aura was definitely not this strong. Therefore, he felt that even if he faced Yi Tianyun with full power, he was confident that he could take him down. Who knew that Yi Tianyun's strength could be even stronger? The unparalleled aura made him feel more pressure. Damn it! Could it be that I've finally revealed my true strength? Heaven God Duan Rui finally realized that he had really been fooled, and completely fooled. He had thought that Yi Tianyun was afraid that he would run back, but it turned out that he had deliberately lured him in and chosen to kill him. This way, his companions would not be able to support him. Heaven God Duan Rui thought too much. The real situation was that Yi Tianyun could only use the power of faith after coming in. Outside, there was no way to use the power of faith. If he could use the power of faith outside, he would really be able to kill Heaven God Duan Rui without having to run back to attack. After all, with this power, the first sneak attack could already kill Heaven God Duan Rui. Why would he need to lure him back? Now that things had come to this, Heaven God Duan Rui knew that he had no choice but to summon the Heavenly God's spiritual treasure and prepare to fight. Yi Tianyun also used his strongest power to fight Heaven God Duan Rui. Even with the power of faith, it was still not easy to fight. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying explosion spread out in the god realm of the three realms. The violent shockwaves immediately spread out, and many cultivators sensed it. However, before the battle, Yi Tianyun had already warned them to stay away from the battle. After the explosion, Duan Rui dodged to the side, his heart incomparably shocked. His strength is really much stronger than before, it's not even on the same level, this is equivalent to the upper heavenly god level. He swept a cold glance at Yi Tianyun. Just as he was about to continue his battle with Yi Tianyun, a cold light flashed behind him. He had just dodged to the side, and because of the explosion, he could not see clearly in front of him. He believed that Yi Tianyun did not know where he was either, but when he felt a sense of danger, he knew that his location had been discovered. Puchi. Everything happened so quickly that even if he sensed the danger, it was already too late. With astonishing speed, it easily pierced through his head and nailed him to the void. Why your strength, how did it become so strong? Duan Rui's head had already been pierced through, but he still retained a little bit of consciousness. There's no need for you to know. Yi Tianyun did not waste time with him. He twisted the five-dragon divine spear in his hand and instantly exploded Duan Rui's head. A heavenly god died just like that. He knew in advance where Duan Rui was hiding. Naturally, it was the Fecta divine fan. Before the attack, he used the Fecta divine fan to divine the situation of Duan Rui's battle. Although he could not divine everything, there was no problem with the first few steps. After the divination, everything was much easier. Using his advantage here, he could instantly move to Duan Rui's location and carry out the strongest sneak attack. After all, he could go anywhere in the god realm of the three realms with just a thought. Wouldn't he be a fool if he did not use such an advantage? Therefore, in the god realm of the three realms, no one could compete with him in terms of speed. He could escape with one teleport or appear behind or in front of them with one familiar move. Even the evil emperor would find this terrifying power very troublesome to deal with. However, it was only troublesome. If the heretical emperor vented his anger on his subjects, it would not be a good thing. Therefore, Yi Tianyun still had to be careful. If there were no subjects here, he would really want to let them all in and exhaust them to death. I can finally kill a higher heavenly god. If I wasn't here, it would be very difficult to kill him. Yi Tianyun shook his head. If they were outside, he would have no choice but to turn and run. His current strength was still far too weak. After he killed God Duan Rui, he felt a gaze filled with murderous intent staring at him. He turned his head and saw a familiar figure appear in front of him. This person was none other than an old acquaintance, Heavenly God Sky Cloud. Yi Tianyun remembered that Heavenly God Torrential Cloud didn't come to fight with him before, so he didn't expect him to appear in front of him now. Yi Tianyun was a little surprised, but it was reasonable. He guessed that Heavenly God Sky Cloud had volunteered to come here after learning that he had appeared in the god realm of the three realms. That was indeed the case. After learning that Yi Tianyun was here, Heavenly God Sky Cloud had volunteered to keep an eye on him. Yi Tianyun had humiliated him so much and humiliated him within the evil spirit race. How could he tolerate this? As such, he immediately requested to come and kill Yi Tianyun in order to wash away his shame. However, by the time he arrived, it was already too late. His companion had died at the hands of Yi Tianyun. This made his heart tremble. One had to realize that Yi Tianyun had been beaten to a pulp by him. If it weren't for Patriarch Heaven cultivation, he really would have crushed Yi Tianyun to death. Now, his understanding of Yi Tianyun had been completely upended. How had he become so powerful? Although heavenly god Duan Rui was not as powerful as him, he was still a higher heavenly god, yet he had been killed by Yi Tianyun. He had seen everything that had happened just now. After all, he was unable to use his spiritual sense to scan the area clearly. However, he knew that it was Yi Tianyun who had killed his companion, and that was enough for him. And Lin was able to kill his companion without any help. This was far beyond his expectations. "Oh, heavenly god Sky Cloud, we meet again," Yi Tianyun said with a smile as he flew over to the barrier. Heavenly god Sky Cloud looked at him with a dark expression. It was not going to be easy to kill Yi Tianyun now. In particular, whether or not Yi Tianyun would let him in was another matter. Chapter 1671. Even though Yi Tianyun had become much more powerful, Empyrean god Torrential Cloud was confident that he could still deal with him. Besides, if he didn't go in, he wouldn't have a chance to kill Yi Tianyun. He would have no choice but to watch from the outside. His original plan was to wait for Yi Tianyun to come out. If Yi Tianyun didn't come out, then he would kill his subordinates and force Yi Tianyun to come out. Yi Tianyun looked at Empyrean god Torrential Cloud. It had to be said that Empyrean god Torrential Cloud lived up to his reputation as a patriarch. His overall combat prowess was far superior to that of Empyrean god Duan Rui. They were both early-stage Empyrean gods, but Empyrean god Torrential Cloud was much more powerful. Only by comparing them could one tell where the disparity lay. That's not a problem. Yi Tianyun looked at Empyrean god Torrential Cloud as he calculated his chances of defeating him. After all, when Empyrean god Torrential Cloud unleashed his full power, he would undoubtedly be even more monstrous. As such, he had to think carefully before letting him in. He didn't care if he was injured, but if Empyrean god Torrential Cloud went berserk, he wouldn't be able to stop him. If that happened, the Three Realms God realm would probably be affected. That wouldn't be a good thing. Then why don't you let me in? Empyrean god Torrential Cloud pressed himself against the barrier and motioned for Yi Tianyun to let him in. Can't we talk about the past here? If you want to say something, you can say it now. Yi Tianyun had no choice but to let Empyrean god Torrential Cloud in. Who knew if Empyrean god Torrential Cloud would go berserk and attack his subjects first instead of him? Looks like you're scared. Where's your courage? You were able to kill even Empyrean god Duan Rui. Are you scared of me? Empyrean god Torrential Cloud looked at Yi Tianyun with a disdainful and provocative expression. Either come out or let me in. The choice is yours. Didn't we agree to talk about the past? Fighting and killing is not my style. Yi Tianyun waved his hand, and a wine table appeared next to him, and he started to drink slowly. Bullshit. Don't talk so much, just tell me, do you have the guts to come out and fight with me? Either you let me in and fight, it's your choice. Heavenly god Sky Cloud couldn't even be bothered to bicker with Yi Tianyun. He wanted nothing more than to tear Yi Tianyun's face to shreds. I choose to sit here and watch you jump around like a monkey. Yi Tianyun smiled and took a sip of wine. He looked at him as if he was looking at a monkey. Coward. Weaklings, lowly humans. Come out and fight me if you have the guts. Don't hide in there. Heavenly god Skywave roared with rage. If you have what it takes, then break the shield and enter. That way, I will fight you, Yi Tianyun said with a smile. Aren't you just spouting nonsense? If I could break through the barrier, I would have gone in long ago. Empyrean god Tower Cloud said angrily. If I can't break it, then there's nothing I can do. If you can't even break through a barrier, what right do you have to fight me? Yi Tianyun chuckled. Bullshit. Empyrean god Sky Cloud was about to explode with rage. This is a barrier given to you by the heavens. I don't know how lucky you are to have something like this. How am I supposed to break it? If you know what you're saying, then why should I go out and fight you? I have this thing to protect me, so why should I give it up? Yi Tianyun looked at him with a disdainful expression. If you have what it takes, why don't you cut off half of your cultivation base and fight me again? Your cultivation base is so much higher than mine, and you still want to fight me? How shameless. Empyrean god Sky Cloud was about to throw up blood from rage. I'm on the same level as Empyrean god Duan Rui. If he can do it, then I can't. It's not that you can't. Walk around the outside and bark like a dog, and I'll let you in. Yi Tianyun waved his wine glass, indicating for him to bark like a dog. You're the one who's going to bark like a dog, you lowly human. Empyrean god Sky Cloud was naturally aware of what a dog was. It was an even lower level pet, so barking like a dog was tantamount to barking like a dog. Well, you can have fun outside. Yi Tianyun didn't bother to pay attention to him and continued to drink the wine. Alright. Don't come out for the rest of your life if you dare. I'll stand guard outside for the rest of my life. I refuse to believe that you won't come out. Empyrean god Sky Cloud was about to explode from rage, and he had no choice but to threaten him. Got it, little dog. Yi Tianyun raised his glass and smiled at him. After all, only a dog will stay at the door of my house and help me guard the door. Thank you very much. As a token of my appreciation, I'll treat you to a drink. He tossed the wine glass in his hand through the barrier as he spoke, which flew toward Empyrean god Sky Cloud. However, it was crushed viciously as soon as it reached Empyrean god Sky Cloud. How dare you insult me over and over again? I hope you don't fall into my hands for the rest of your life. Empyrean god Sky Cloud was very enraged, but he had no other choice. The barrier couldn't be broken, so what could he do? He was starting to regret coming here. He was about to explode from rage at the hands of Yi Tianyun, but he still couldn't charge in. Wait, I'm willing to let you in, Yi Tianyun said. Really? Empyrean god Sky Cloud's eyes lit up. Of course, but I'll only let you in with your head. You'll have to sever the rest of your body, Yi Tianyun said with a smile. In that case, I'll let you in. You're messing with me. Empyrean god Sky Cloud gritted his teeth. If he went in with only his head, he would die. Even if his body could recover, it wouldn't be able to do so in a short time. I'm not messing with you. If you do that, I promise to let you in. Yi Tianyun patted his chest with a smile. Boom. Empyrean god Sky Cloud's fist slammed into the barrier, but he didn't use much force. Instead, he glowered at Enlin with killing intent in his eyes. I don't have time to waste with you. Just remember, don't ever come out. He turned to leave as he spoke. He didn't want to stay here any longer. If he stayed here, he would only be toyed with and wouldn't receive any substantial benefits. After he had left for a distance, Yi Tianyun suddenly stood up and stepped out of the barrier with a smile on his face. I'm already out. Empyrean god Sky Cloud immediately turned to look at him. Don't go back if you dare. All Yi Tianyun had to do was take a step back, and he would be able to go back in. He still wouldn't be able to catch Yi Tianyun. Don't worry, I definitely won't go back this time. Yi Tianyun continued to make his way toward Empyrean god Sky Cloud. However, I won't be the only one here to entertain you. At this moment, several figures appeared in quick succession, all of which possessed extremely terrifying auras. Not only had the patriarch of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm come, but even the realm leader of the Dragon Yu God Realm had also come. Chapter 1672. Heavenly God Sky Cloud's expression instantly shifted upon seeing the powerful beings surrounding him. He couldn't sense any energy fluctuations around him. It should be said that his attention is attracted by Yi Tianyun. From the beginning to the end, Yi Tianyun attracted his attention. In particular, he was constantly trying to infuriate him, so much so that he didn't even notice his surroundings. By the time he noticed it, it was already too late. There were so many powerful beings surrounding him, creating a massive ceiling formation. This time, he wouldn't be able to escape as easily as last time. In other words, there was no way he could escape at all, not even if he used his escape treasure. The space around him had already been sealed, and unless the mighty figure who saved him was a bit more powerful, it would be very difficult for them to pass through space and save him. So you've been stalling for time this entire time. How despicable. Heavenly God Sky Cloud glared at him with an extremely cold, killing intent in his eyes. The power within his body was quickly activated to the maximum, and he was ready to unleash his full power at a moment's notice. Despicable? How can I be despicable when dealing with you evil spirit tribe beings? Compared to your despicable acts, our despicable acts are nothing. A faint smile appeared on Yi Tianyun's face. He felt like this heavenly god Sky Cloud was a complete joke. He definitely wasn't going to talk to the evil spirit tribe beings about honesty or fairness. All of that was bullshit. He had to be more vicious and devious when dealing with them. If he showed even the slightest bit of mercy, he would definitely be the one to die. His enemies weren't going to give up on killing them just because they begged for mercy. They would still kill those who had to be killed, and they would still devour those who had to be devoured. Softening their hearts was like turning a rock into tofu. In the next instant, Heavenly God Sky Cloud charged toward Yi Tianyun without uttering a single word. During their conversation, he had already activated his power to the maximum, and he immediately unleashed it. At the same time, he stuffed an awakening crystal into his mouth to awaken his own power. He had already awakened his power once before, but he had paid a very heavy price to recover it, so the power of his power hadn't diminished in the slightest. Even if I die, I'm going to make you die with me. Heavenly God Sky Cloud wanted to drag someone down with him. No matter what, he had to kill Yi Tianyun first. In the blink of an eye, Heavenly God Torrential Cloud had already reached Yi Tianyun. He swung a palm down with devastating force, and an inky black energy engulfed everything. Yi Tianyun had a smile on his face, as if everything was within his expectations. However, he did not move. He still stood where he was, as if he had been scared silly. The next moment, it proved that he was not scared silly. A barrier of light suddenly appeared in front of Yi Tianyun, keeping Heavenly God Torrential Cloud's attack at bay. At the same time, the barrier of light continued to envelop Heavenly God Torrential Cloud. Even Empyrean God Tower Cloud had been enveloped by this ring of light, and it was gradually shrinking. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that these were all realm lords or patriarch-level beings who had joined forces to set up this grand formation that had trapped Heavenly God Surging Clouds within. How could Empyrean God Tower Cloud possibly injure Yi Tianyun when so many powerful Empyrean gods had set up a formation to trap him? Let's see how you're going to escape this time, Empyrean God Tower Cloud. One of the Heaven Cultivation God Realm Patriarchs harumphed coldly. Empyrean God Tower Cloud had snuck into the three realms for so long, but they were completely unaware of this. This made them extremely angry. As soon as they learned of what was happening, they immediately rushed over to provide reinforcements. Even if they had nothing to do with the three realms God Realm, they would still rush over to provide reinforcements. Empyrean God Tower Cloud had been blacklisted by the Heaven Cultivation God Realm long ago. They had to capture him or kill him no matter what. Thus, their army had set out to completely seal off this place, trapping Empyrean God Tower Cloud in his carelessness. You want to capture me? It won't be that easy. Empyrean God Tower Cloud let out an enraged roar as he unleashed all of his Empyrean God spirit treasures. He was willing to pay any price to unleash their most powerful attacks against the barrier. Following a series of ferocious attacks, the barrier began to loosen slightly. He had unleashed all of his power, and he was even willing to damage his Empyrean God spirit treasures in order to unleash this power, so it naturally wouldn't be weak. Boom boom boom. The barrage of attacks did indeed cause the barrier to crack a little, but with the support of so many Empyrean gods, it was able to remain intact. Empyrean God Tower Cloud was only putting up a desperate fight. As long as he continued to suppress the barrier, Empyrean God Tower Cloud would definitely be trapped to death. As time passed, Empyrean God Tower Cloud's struggles became completely futile. In the end, Empyrean God Torrential Cloud was completely sealed off. His body was surrounded by multiple rings, completely locking him in place, as well as the power within his body. He was no different from a piece of trash now. He couldn't even move, let alone fight back. At most, he would only be able to say a few words. Got him. They were ecstatic. They had finally captured Empyrean God Tower Cloud. Now, they would be able to give the Heaven Cultivation God Realm an explanation. Arf! You pieces of trash. Empyrean God Tower Cloud wanted to break free, but he was completely unable to move. After this bout of consumption, he was already somewhat exhausted, and it was even more impossible for him to struggle free. Empyrean God Tower Cloud, we've finally captured you. One of the patriarchs flew down and looked at him with a cold expression. If it weren't for the fact that the vile emperor isn't here, all of you would be dead already. Empyrean God Tower Cloud roared. The vile emperor definitely wasn't going to stay here any longer. After giving some instructions, he hurried back to take care of the situation. Huan Mingyue had been captured, and there was still a lot of work to be done. After all, he had significantly impacted their progress. There was no way he was going to stay here forever. He would rather send more powerful beings to guard this place than come here in person. It wasn't that he didn't have the patience, it was just that there was no need for him to do this. What he had to do was far more important. The problem is that he's not here. Yi Tianyun flew over to him. If he was here, I wouldn't have come out, idiot. Empyrean God Tower Cloud glared at him and gritted his teeth. Don't think that you can hide in there forever. There's no point in hiding in there. When the battle between the God Emperors begins and you're the only power left, you'll know what kind of enemy you're facing. The battle between the God Emperors begins? How long before it begins? Yi Tianyun asked. There's no need for you to know that. By the time you realize what's going to happen, everything will have already been reduced to dust. Empyrean God Tower Cloud roared with laughter. He felt like everything was a joke. Even if he was about to die, he wasn't fearful in the slightest. To them, as long as the vile emperor became the God Emperor, they would be resurrected. Chapter 1673. After Heavenly God's sky cloud was taken away, the surroundings quickly returned to normal. However, Yi Tianyun's heart was not calm at all. Even though he didn't know when the battle between the God Emperors would begin, he believed that it would happen very soon. Everything would come at an extremely fast speed and catch them off guard. That was what Heavenly God's sky cloud had said. Everything would be over before they could react. This meant that the army would be mobilized very soon. As for when, that was not very clear. Even Huan Mingyue didn't know this. Her main responsibility was to control the barrier. She had no right to do anything. Thus, it was normal that she didn't know. The information she knew was limited. A full-scale attack, Yi Tianyun thought back to the evil spirit tribe that had been constantly setting up teleportation portals. It looked like the war was really about to come. Once it came, their targets would naturally be the Yuelong God Realm and the Heaven Cultivation God Realm. These two God Realms would be the first to be destroyed. The reason was very simple. They wanted to steal the evil spirit's pearl. As for the Fekta God Realm, it was only a matter of time before it was discovered. Only his place was slightly safer and could last for another 1,000 years. If all the other forces were taken over, it would be an extremely tragic thing. When that time came, he would be the only force left. The evil spirit tribe would be eyeing this place covetously. That would be the most tragic thing. When the barrier disappeared, his God realm of the three realms would be instantly torn to pieces. When he returned to the God realm of the three realms, everything was the same. There were no problems. With the protection of the barrier, the cultivators inside naturally had a very easy time. Of course, they never allowed these cultivators to have a very easy time. There were still all kinds of danger zones. There was no guarantee of safety after entering, and they would still die. Without this kind of cruel training, they would definitely panic when faced with danger in the future. Those with higher cultivation bases could go to other god realms to train, and the level of danger was naturally higher. It's time to increase my speed. Otherwise, I won't be able to keep up. Tianyun looked at the situation. With the help of the Fekta god realm, the situation had improved greatly. With so many cores set up, the cultivation area had improved greatly, which greatly increased their breakthroughs. Under such favorable conditions, their situation naturally improved rapidly. However, it was still too slow. There was still a long way to go before he could successfully complete the main mission. After all, he needed to complete the highest level of the main mission, which required him to be an Empyrean in order to complete the corresponding mission. All of them need to be at the Empyrean level. The difficulty is really high. The main mission was divided into several stages. Tianyun only wanted to complete the highest difficulty, which was roughly 30 lower celestial venerables, 10 middle celestial venerables, and 5 upper celestial venerables. Since he had previously completed a special mission, which was the Alliance mission, he could reduce the requirements by half. This way, they only needed 15 lower Empyreans, 5 middle Empyreans, and 3 upper Empyreans. Although it was halved, the overall difficulty was still not low. From the start until now, there had not been a single heavenly venerate. It was already pretty good to have a divine lord, much less a heavenly venerate. Fortunately, all the people he had recruited were counted. For example, Venerate Feng Qiu and the newly joined heavenly goddess Luck were both included. However, heavenly gods like the heavenly god of luck could only fill in for the upper heavenly venerate at most. Overall, they were only lacking lower heavenly venerables and middle heavenly venerables. It would be quite difficult to get so many heavenly venerables to join him. Tianyun also did not want to recruit all these powerhouses. This would undoubtedly be detrimental to his development. We still need a lot of time to develop. Tianyun shook his head. There was still a lot of time for them to break through. Then, his figure flashed and appeared beside Huan Mingyue. Huan Mingyue was still meditating in place. Her forehead was covered in cold sweat, but it quickly evaporated. When Tianyun came in, she slowly opened her eyes. A hint of fatigue could be seen in her beautiful eyes. It was clear that it was very difficult to break this slave contract. You're here. What's the situation outside? Did that bastard chase after us? She was very worried about the situation. If the evil emperor chased after them, it would not be a good thing. See for yourself. Tianyun threw over a recording disc and let Huan Mingyue see the contents herself. After Huan Mingyue took it, she began to read the contents. Her expression was very interesting. The content recorded was naturally that the evil emperor had led a large group of powerhouses to constantly attack the barrier. Later, they had even sent out their divine will, but it was of no use. This is too amazing. I've never seen such a magical barrier. It's like that barrier. Huan Mingyue was overjoyed. This way, she was undoubtedly very safe. This way, you can break it without worry. How much have you broken now? Tianyun said with a smile. I've broken about half of it. Just a little more time, and I'll be able to break it. Huan Mingyue had been breaking it for a few years. Time flowed very quickly here. A month outside was a few years here. It was dozens of times faster. No matter what, Tianyun will definitely arrange for her to be in this kind of room, so that she can use every second to break the seal. Time. Tianyun narrowed his eyes. What if I expand this great formation to the entire Three Realms God realm? What he needed now was time, and a lot of time. However, a time formation was not that easy to set up. The time and manpower required were extremely large. The more people cultivated inside, the more resources would be expended. As such, only a small number of cultivation sites would provide this kind of time formation. As for covering the entire God realm, that was almost impossible. The resources required could only be described as terrifying. However, Tianyun couldn't care less now. He had to increase his overall strength immediately. Soon, he went to find the heavenly misfortune god and the god spirit tribe patriarch. I have a bold plan now, and that is to set up time formations on all the planets. Set them up at all costs. Can you do it? Tianyun looked at them with a scorching gaze. I don't want to say how high the level, but it has to be at least 10 times faster than normal. After hearing this plan, they were initially taken aback. The heavenly misfortune god and the others turned their heads and said, that would consume too many resources. I don't recommend doing this. Setting up a small portion is fine, but setting up a large portion is really not advisable. The time required, no problem. The elders of the Divine Spirit clan shouted at the same time, full of fighting spirit. Chapter 1674. As the core members of the God realm of the three realms, all of them agreed that they could do it. They didn't care why Tianyun had this idea, but as long as Tianyun gave them the mission, they would do it. Alright, then I'll leave it to you. If you need any resources, you can ask Celestial Empress. Tianyun nodded at Shi Shuyan, indicating that he would leave this to Shi Shuyan. Alright, let's go set it up right now. They moved swiftly, immediately leaving this place to set up the time formation. The heavenly misfortune god and the others were all dumbstruck. They didn't even have the chance to voice any doubts. Wasn't this a little too decisive? From a rational point of view, this expenditure was simply too astonishing, and it was detrimental to the development of the god realm of the three realms. Maintaining so many time formations required an astronomical amount of resources. Otherwise, most of the god realm would already be doing this, and there wouldn't be only a small portion of areas that could be used to set up time formations. Heavenly venerate heavenly cloud, isn't this a little too much? You're going to exhaust yourself to death by setting up so many time formations. I'd rather you set up a small portion of the area. That way, you'll still be able to sustain it. If you set up too many time formations, you'll expend a lot of resources at once. The heavenly misfortune god was very experienced in this regard, and she began to do some calculations for Tianyun. Maintaining a time formation requires a lot of resources. Even if it's only 10 times the flow of time, it'll require. Heavenly misfortune god, do you know why they're so obedient to my instructions? Tianyun interjected with a smile. You're the realm leader, so they'll definitely listen to your orders, the heavenly misfortune god replied. No, they think that since I've spoken, then I have the ability to resolve this issue, so there's no need for them to worry about it, Tianyun explained with a smile. That's impossible. So many resources are required. Just spirit stones alone will require a huge amount of resources. That doesn't even include other resources. There are simply too many things required, and it's not something that can be easily filled. Heavenly God Misfortune shook his head. Even their Fekta divine realm would not be able to fill this gap so easily. Tell me, is what you're thinking about going to last for a long time? Tianyun looked at the two sisters. Yes, for a long period of time. Not too long, but at least 1,000 years. The amount of resources required for this is quite terrifying. Heavenly God Misfortune did some calculations and was quite astonished. I'm very sorry. What I need is a short-term one. Even if it can't last for 1,000 years, 100 years is enough. Tianyun looked at them indifferently and said, the battle between the god emperors is coming soon. What's the point of keeping so many resources? Are you going to bury them with yourself? They were stunned. Only now did they understand why Tianyun was so anxious. It was because of the battle between god emperors. If he thought about it carefully, that was indeed the case. Their habitual thinking made them think of the terrifying amount of resources from the very beginning. Now that he thought about it carefully, he realized that what the three realms god realm lacked right now was powerhouses. What it lacked was an increase in overall strength. Now that they had all the outstanding cultivation sites, all they lacked was time. The time formation could undoubtedly fill this gap, but the problem was that it would expend too many resources. However, maintaining it for 100 years was not an issue. This would undoubtedly buy them a lot of time, especially for the battle between the god emperors that Tianyun was talking about. If the battle between the god emperors came, they wouldn't have time to use all the resources they had. Now that you mention it, that does seem to be the case. The heavenly god Misfortune and the others were extremely embarrassed. They hadn't thought about this for a while. Even if time is accelerated, 100 years is only 1,000 years. For most cultivators, that's only the blink of an eye, but for us, it's a race against time. Tianyun spoke with a serious expression. I don't know when the battle between the god emperors will begin, but every little bit of time is a little bit of time. If the battle between the god emperors only begins in 200 years, then we'll be able to cultivate for another 1,000 years. Perhaps when the time comes, our forces still won't be able to match the power of the other major forces, but at least we'll be able to put up a fight against the evil spirit race. Tianyun was making such sacrifices in preparation for the upcoming battle. He couldn't protect the Three Realms God realm forever, so he had to become more powerful as soon as possible. According to the time limit of the barrier, it could last for about 1,000 years. However, if the battle between the god emperors were to erupt within 100 years, then he couldn't just watch as the forces outside were destroyed while they hid here, right? As long as the forces outside were destroyed, his side wouldn't be far from destruction. He might have the support of the system, but if he didn't have absolute power, then there was no way he could protect the Three Realms God realm. As such, they would have to rely on themselves for the future. Whether they could survive or not would depend on themselves. He had always hoped that there wouldn't be any large-scale casualties in the Three Realms God realm, but there were some things that he couldn't control, so he could only minimize the losses. The best thing to do now was to buy as much time as possible for this battle. Realm ruler Heavenly Cloud, we were too naive. The Heavenly Luck Goddess said awkwardly, our Fecta Divine Realm has always been spending too much on resources, and it's almost impossible for us to make up for our lack of resources. It's alright, your idea is also very good, so your plan will definitely be very reasonable. However, this is a critical period, so we can only use this method. Tianyun said in a solemn voice, in my opinion, the true battle will erupt in less than 100 years. The evil spirit race was very active, and it was clear that they were going to erupt in the near future. It was very unlikely that they would be able to survive for another 1,000 years. When that time came, this place would become a safe place, and the rest of the regions would fall into darkness. Alright, if that's the case, then we'll help set up a special time formation that can accelerate time by more than 50 times. However, that's going to be quite costly. The two of them turned to Tianyun with smiles. Tianyun's eyes lit up. Then I'll leave it to the two of you. Just set it up in a special region. The more rapid the flow of time, the more costly it would be, so it would undoubtedly be best to set it up in a special region. For example, they would require more contribution points in order to enter seclusion. For those who had performed well and made great contributions, the required contribution points would be lowered to allow them to stay in the sect for a longer period of time. After coming up with a plan, they all set off to set up the formation. Tianyun murmured to himself as he looked at their departing figures, looks like I'll have to make some preparations too. Chapter 1675. After Tianyun arranged everything, he did not choose to stay in the Three Realms God domain to inspect. He believed that they would definitely be able to do it well, and it would definitely exceed the effect he needed. He had always been at ease with their work, so there was no need to inspect, nor was there a need to stay here to supervise. Moreover, with Shui in here, she understood his heart and naturally knew what he needed. What he needed to do now was to frantically break through his cultivation, as fast as he could. He had to break through to the heavenly god stage before the battle between the god emperors. Not only did he have to break through to the heavenly god stage, he also had to have a large amount of resources to provide for the Three Realms God domain. The resources needed to set up the time formation on a large scale would definitely be astronomical. Thus, if he stayed in the Three Realms God domain, no matter how many resources he had, they would be used up. For this reason, he had to come out and search for more resources. Resources were definitely not something that he could dig himself. He did not know how long it would take to gather enough resources. Especially since there was not only one type of resource, there were also many materials that he needed. What was the fastest way to get resources? Naturally, it was by robbing. Nothing was faster than snatching. He naturally would not go to the god domain to snatch them, but to eradicate the evil spirit race. Snatching from the hands of the evil spirit race was undoubtedly the best way. Not only could he eliminate the evil spirit race, he could also obtain resources. It was simply killing two birds with one stone. The area that Yi Tianyun was heading to was not the hiding spot of the evil spirit race, but the barrier area. He wanted to take a look at the situation of the barrier. At the same time, there were actually quite a few evil spirit race near the barrier. He could start from here now and even get a coordinate near the barrier so that he could come over at any time in the future. The location of the barrier was naturally at the edge of the 5th grade god domain. Before coming to the 5th grade god domain, most cultivators thought that this world was boundless. In reality, there were boundaries. Whether it was Fan Yu or the god domain, there were boundaries. It was just that Fan Yu's limit was relatively far, so it was very difficult for anyone to fly to the barrier area. After all, Fan Yu's cultivation was relatively low, and there were not many who could fly. Normally, they would not fly there. There was no point in flying to the barrier. There were many powerhouses in the god domain, and they could often fly to the barrier region. The evil spirit race came from this barrier. As for Fan Yu's barrier, there was no evil spirit race that could pass through. As for what was on the other side of the barrier, no one knew. However, they only needed to know one thing, the barrier against a grade 5 god realm. When Yi Tianyun arrived at the grade 5 god domain, he also saw many god domains that had been destroyed. The after effects of the battle between god emperors also existed in the grade 5 god domain. He followed the map that Huan Mingyue had given him and passed through many damaged god territories. Along the way, he occasionally saw experts passing by. However, they only glanced at each other for a moment before leaving. They didn't try to stop him. If someone intercepted him and robbed him, he would not hesitate to rob the other party. Although it was not the evil spirit race, he would not be courteous to those ruthless people. With a fat sheep delivering itself to his doorstep, why would he stand on ceremony? However, none of them stopped him. Everyone seemed to have their own mission, flying around as if they were looking for something. Yi Tianyun glanced at them. Their cultivation was not low. All of them were at the heavenly god level, and the weakest was at the upper heavenly venerable level. In the current chaotic region, without a strong cultivation, one would not dare to come out casually. As a grade 5 god domain, they naturally had more information than a grade 4 god domain. Therefore, they already knew about the situation of the evil spirit race. However, they did not know what actions they would take. However, there was one thing that was quite ironic. Those who had the evil spirit's pearl were all grade 4 god domains. The Fekta god domain was considered a grade 5 god domain. The other two god domains were grade 4 god domains. Compared to grade 5 god domains, their protection was naturally much weaker. It was not that they deliberately chose the weaker god domains to protect. Rather, the cultivation god domain was not weak to begin with. It was a grade 5 god domain. However, as time passed, it gradually declined to the level of a grade 4 god domain. Because Yuelong's god domain was more hidden, choosing a grade 4 god domain was also more low-key. However, Yuelong's god domain was very strong. It was very close to a grade 5 god domain. Grade 5 god domain, Yi Tianyun did not go to visit them. It was not good to visit anyone at this time. Who knew if there would be any traders in these grade 5 god domains? Moreover, he was not interested. Right now, he just wanted to snatch resources and increase his cultivation. It was that simple. After passing through many god domains, he soon arrived near the barrier area. The barrier area was very empty. There was nothing. Not to mention planets, there was not even a small piece of rock. This place seemed rather empty, making him wonder if he had gone the wrong way. However, as he continued forward, he soon knew that he had not gone the wrong way. After flying for a short distance, he immediately saw a huge crystal wall. It was all stacked together, forming a thick wall. Its height was very limited. It was at most a few 100 feet tall, but its width could not be seen. This was the barrier that separated the evil spirit race from the outside. Rather than calling it a barrier, it looked more like a huge patch that filled up the entrance. It was undoubtedly more appropriate to describe it this way. He turned his head to look at both sides, but did not see any evil spirit race, nor did he see any evil spirit race coming out. He quickly flew to the front of the barrier and reached out his hand to gently climb on it. He immediately felt an extremely compressed energy transmitted from his fingers. This gave him a feeling that it was indestructible. Even a peak heavenly god would not be able to damage it at all. Crystal barrier, able to block the attacks of powerhouses. Even a peak heavenly god would not be able to easily destroy it. However, after a long period of damage, it would still be broken through. However, it would be extremely difficult and would take a very long time. The appraisal I listed the corresponding information, letting Yi Tianyun know that this was not absolutely invincible. It could still be destroyed. The principle of this crystal barrier was very simple. It was very hard, and there was not a single weak spot. Even if a single attack was made, the rest of the energy would quickly fill in and repair the damaged area. Therefore, it was not a problem to destroy this barrier, but the prerequisite was that the entire barrier had to be destroyed before they could enter from the other side. Of course, nothing was absolute. If it was really that absolute, there would not be any evil spirit race coming over from that side. The crystal barrier had cracks. After being destroyed for a long time, small cracks would appear from time to time. Chapter 1676. There were still loopholes in such a shocking barrier. However, it was already very good to have such an effect. It was better than coming over easily. Apart from that, the Heaven Creator race would come over to remove the barrier and open a small hole for the evil spirit race to come in. This was the easiest. They didn't need to destroy the barrier or wait for a crack to appear. They could come over easily. This crystal barrier was made by the Heaven Creator race, so it was naturally controlled by them. After touching it for a while, Yi Tianyun was just about to fly to other areas to see how wide the barrier was when two figures suddenly appeared near him. He quickly raised his head and saw that two intermediate heavenly gods had appeared near him. They looked very aggressive. Each of them was wearing sturdy armor and had heavenly gods' spiritual treasures all over their bodies. They looked like real gods of war. When they saw Yi Tianyun, they were stunned. One of them shouted at him, "Why are you so close to the barrier? Hurry up and leave." From their words, there was no doubt that they were the experts in charge of this area. Most of the grade 5 divine realms were still abiding by their duties and helping to guard the crystal barrier. If the evil spirit race came out, the grade 5 divine realms would definitely be the first to suffer. If they didn't care, the evil spirit race would wreak havoc here. When that happened, their disciples would definitely suffer when they went out to train. Thus, regardless of whether they were willing or not, they had to guard this place obediently. "Sai, don't be so rash. Little brother, this isn't a safe place. We don't know which organization you're from, but it's not good to wander around here." An intermediate heavenly god reached out to stop his companion, indicating that he should not be so serious. His attitude was undoubtedly much better than the one beside him. The heavenly god beside him couldn't be bothered with Yi Tianyun anymore. He had already been warned, but whether he listened or not was another matter. "Seniors, I'm just an itinerant cultivator. I heard that there was a situation here, so I came to take a look. Speaking of which, do the evil spirit race often appear here?" Yi Tianyun asked. "So what if there is the evil spirit race? Are you going to guard this place?" The heavenly god beside him grumbled unhappily. He felt that Yi Tianyun was talking nonsense. Heaven God Shui, don't be so rash. Calm down. Isn't it just that you've been a little unhappy lately? Is there a need to do this? The god beside him tried to persuade him. God Mang, how can I be happy? I loathe these loose cultivators the moment I see them. And there are even loose cultivators who want to dig through the crystal barrier. They're just idiots. I've never seen anyone so foolish as to want to dig through the crystal barrier. It's a good thing they can't dig it out. If they could, it would be serious. I don't know what's in their heads. Don't they know the consequences if the crystal barrier is broken? Shui Tian was very dissatisfied with Shui Tian's nagging. He vented all the things he had encountered before, which made even Yi Tianyun feel that he couldn't bear it anymore. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't tolerate heavenly god Shui, but he couldn't tolerate those vagrant cultivators who had come to dig up the crystal barrier. Although he was a rogue cultivator, he still knew a lot of information, especially about the crystal barrier. How could he not know about the evil spirit race? That was obviously impossible. He must have felt that the crystal barrier was very valuable and wanted to take it away. Or he might have felt that there was an extremely high amount of energy inside the crystal barrier and wanted to dig it back to cultivate. Fortunately, the crystal barrier couldn't be dug away. Otherwise, it would really be completely dug out. Such selfish cultivators were not in the minority. In fact, there were quite a lot of them. Senior, I wouldn't do such a thing. I'm just here to take a look. If I see any evil spirit race, I'll eliminate them. Yi Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. No wonder heavenly god Shui was so arrogant. How could he not be arrogant after seeing that he was a vagrant cultivator? Yi Tianyun didn't have any insignia on him, but the two of them had corresponding insignia. It was a long sword, indicating that they were heavenly gods of the Jianfeng divine realm. Yi Tianyun had a very good impression of the Jianfeng divine realm. After all, the Jianfeng divine realm was on the blacklist. This immediately made him have a good impression of the Jianfeng divine realm. To be on the blacklist of the evil spirit race, they must have done many things to exterminate the evil spirit race. They were naturally on the same side as him. Heavenly God Shui, see? I told you not to be so arrogant. Not all vagrant cultivators are like this. Heavenly God Mang looked on with gratification. Yi Tianyun, there was finally a reasonable vagrant cultivator. Who can say for sure? Heavenly God Shui's tone softened a little. Alright, you've always been so stubborn, Heavenly God Mang said to Yi Tianyun with a smile. No matter what you think, this place is still quite dangerous. The evil spirit race doesn't appear as crazily as before. However, there will still be evil spirit race here, and they're the stronger ones. It's quite dangerous for you to appear here with your cultivation. I understand, I'm just taking a look, Yi Tianyun said with a smile. If I'm discovered and I can't beat them, I still know how to escape. Escape? Do you think you can escape so easily? Any random heavenly god evil spirit would be enough to kill you. Heavenly God Shui retorted. Yi Tianyun was only an early stage upper heavenly venerable on the surface, so people would naturally think that he was weak. Alright, that's enough. Heavenly God Mang was a rather calm person, and he gestured for his companion to not be so impulsive. At the same time, he said to Yi Tianyun with a smile, "Little brother, don't mind us. How about this, we're here to patrol. If you're interested, do you want to patrol with us?" Heavenly God Mang, you want him to patrol with us? Heavenly God Shui asked in confusion. Is there a problem? This little brother also wants to take responsibility, the responsibility to protect this place. Are you saying that I'm not allowed to? Heavenly God Mang said with a smile. Did you forget what the Sword Edge Region Lord said? We can only defeat the evil spirit race if we work together. Sword Edge Region Lord. Heavenly God Shui fell silent for a moment before turning to Yi Tianyun and said, "Don't be too slow, we're in charge of a large area. If you encounter a powerful evil spirit race, just hide to the side, understand?" Heavenly God Shui's mouth was a little poisonous, but he was a good person. I understand. Yi Tianyun smiled and didn't mind. Anyone would be furious. Heavenly God Shui had seen many wandering cultivators come to dig the crystal barrier, so how could he be nice to wandering cultivators? Heavenly God Mang's attitude was good, and he felt that he was quite amiable. As expected, different cultivators had different attitudes. Chapter 1677. Yi Tianyun followed them out on patrol. They didn't see any evil spirit tribe members along the way, so they chatted happily. Initially, God Shui was a little biased against Yi Tianyun, but he became more enthusiastic after the discussion. Kid, I really admire your way of thinking. It would be great if all the wandering cultivators could think like you. But I've seen so many wandering cultivators trying to steal this crystal barrier. It's too selfish of them to dig this crystal barrier and bring it back to cultivate. God Shui cursed. The news of the crystal barrier has already spread far and wide. Many people in the 5th grade and even the 4th grade regions know about it. Even the 4th grade regions would have heard about it if they could come here. But they still chose to do so. That's really too unreasonable. Fortunately, the crystal barrier isn't something that can be dug out just because you want to. Oh right. I also remember that there was a wandering cultivator who was meditating here and wanted to directly absorb the crystal barrier. Just looking at him pisses me off. After I taught him a good lesson, I threw him to a certain planet. Heavenly God Shui's mouth continued to chatter like a chatterbox. He didn't have so many prejudices after getting to know each other. Isn't that for sure? If this world is invaded by the evil spirit tribe, then everything will be over. The evil spirit tribe is extremely cruel. Anyone who isn't one of their clansmen will be listed as targets to be devoured. Yi Tianyun joined in the conversation. Of course, they don't know the situation of the evil spirit tribe. Relying on the evil spirit tribe is simply courting death. Who would believe the evil spirit tribe's bullshit? But there are really a lot of idiots who believe the evil spirit tribe's bullshit. God Shui shook his head helplessly. Wait, there's movement up ahead. God Mang was just about to join in the conversation when he suddenly stopped and signaled for them to be quiet. Yi Tianyun focused his gaze and looked ahead. Upon closer inspection, there was indeed a small crack on the crystal barrier. It looked extremely strange. It's a crack, and it's a new crack. God Mang said with a serious expression, prepare for battle and request reinforcements. Not only did Heaven God Mang's expression turn serious, but even Heaven God Shui's expression turned serious. At the same time, he quickly took out a communication jade pendant and crushed it without hesitation. The two of them were intermediate heavenly gods, yet they immediately chose to crush the moment they saw a crack. Without a doubt, this was an extremely big situation. It was possible that there were other powerful evil spirit races in the surroundings. How could his companions not be there to receive him? Little brother, hurry up and fly back. The further the better. Heaven God Shui gestured for him to leave quickly and not stay here any longer. I also want to stay here and fight. Yi Tianyun's expression was calm. This was exactly the kind of battle he needed, and he just happened to run into it. At the same time, he could also see how they got out. Kid, be rational. Soon, their companions will sense this aura and come over. If you don't escape now, it'll be too late. Their cultivations are all above the heavenly god level. Heavenly God Shui grabbed his shoulder and said, it's not easy to find a reasonable wandering cultivator. Once the battle is over, we'll drag you out for a drink. So, you can't die. Heavenly God Shui's cultivation was a level higher than his, but they didn't put on airs. They felt like old friends at first sight with Yi Tianyun and wanted to befriend him. The main reason was that wandering cultivators were all idiots recently, which made him very unhappy. Yi Tianyun's way of thinking was to his liking, so he would naturally treat him well. Alright then. Yi Tianyun pondered for a moment, then nodded at them and turned to leave. The two of them looked at each other and didn't rush over immediately. Instead, they hid at the side. There were cracks on the crystal barrier, but they weren't the Heaven Creator race and couldn't repair the barrier. Thus, they could only hide at the side and wait for reinforcements to arrive. Then, they would rush over together and get rid of all these trash. This was their mission. Not only was it to patrol, but it was also to immediately inform their companions when there was a situation and deal with it together. If there were only a few evil spirit races, they wouldn't have called for their companions, but it was different when there was a crack. Then, they quietly hid at the side and gradually disappeared into the corner. As for Yi Tianyun, he didn't leave. Instead, he entered the void and used the 5 dragon divine boots to infiltrate more thoroughly. His concealment ability was even better than Heavenly God Shui and the others. In terms of concealment power, there was no power that could compare to the power of the void. Hiding in another world was much better than blending in with the surrounding world. He didn't rush over. Instead, he hid at the side and stared at the crack. As time passed, the crack gradually expanded. Then, thick black energy surged in from the other side, as if forming a bridge for the evil spirit race to cross over. However, the crystal barrier started to flicker continuously, and the original crack started to repair bit by bit. However, the black energy on the other side was even more astonishing. It furiously widened the crack, and for a moment, it was in a deadlock. It was extremely difficult to repair this side, but the other side couldn't come over either. After a while, pitch-black figures appeared from the void. They were all evil spirit race gods, and even the weakest of them was a lesser heavenly god. They were dressed completely differently. Compared to ordinary evil spirit race gods, they were dressed in pitch-black clothes. They looked like some kind of guard. Or rather, they looked like some kind of mysterious force. When they appeared, the surroundings were filled with killing intent. Black energy quickly emitted from their bodies. Following that, they all awakened one after another, erupting with their strongest power. This energy all fused together and transformed into an extremely sharp black spear, heavily piercing through the crack. Then, he quickly pried it to the side, wanting to pry open the crack a little bit. Under normal circumstances, the crystal barrier would be able to sweep in the surrounding energy and fill in the gap. But it was different now. There were many cracks, and they were originally empty, so it was relatively slow to heal. This gave the evil spirit race a chance to take advantage of. What a powerful force. No wonder they said that they were requesting for reinforcements. When Yi Tianyun saw this scene, he felt the pressure increase. There were 15 heavenly gods in this group. After they joined forces, their strength increased by several levels. How could the two of them deal with them? They would directly become cannon fodder. Under the situation of working together from the inside and outside, the crack started to be pried open bit by bit, and more black energy started to surge out from inside. From the looks of it, the evil spirit race was about to enter. Chapter 1678. Heaven God Shui and the others stared at the crack. Yi Tianyun also stared at it from the side. They were very nervous, but they didn't dare to move at all. Heaven God Shui and the others wanted to stab them in the back so that they could break their formation. But if they did that, they would definitely be discovered, and they would be completely wiped out before reinforcements arrived. 15 heavenly gods against 2 heavenly gods, one didn't even need to think to know what the result would be. At the same time, these 15 Empyrean spirits all had high cultivation bases. Even though they were lesser Empyrean gods, they were still a level stronger than ordinary Empyrean spirits. Yi Tianyun felt a strange energy from their bodies. It was as if they had been imbued with a power similar to that of evil spirits, which greatly strengthened them. Therefore, ordinary lower heavenly gods would lose for sure if they faced them. Unless they had some kind of treasure, they might be able to win this battle. If they didn't have any advantage, they would definitely be beaten up by the other party. There was a reason why Heaven God Shui and the others didn't dare to act recklessly. They must have felt the power of these heavenly gods, which was why they didn't dare to act recklessly. As this group of heavenly gods pried open the crack, a small opening appeared in the crack. Compared to before, it was only a little bit wider, and it could be described as a hair's width. It was really too small. Judging from the naked eye, there was basically no change in appearance. However, just by opening such a small opening, a gust of black chi gushed out from within, and it was much faster than before. Soon, after waves of black energy surged in, it quickly condensed and formed a complete evil spirit race. The evil spirit race that appeared was not the same. It should be said that it was similar to this special batch of evil spirits in front of them. They were slightly different from ordinary evil spirits. This was like the difference between ordinary mortals and cultivators. All of them had different temperaments and bloodlines. This meant that those that came in were all evil spirits with rich bloodlines. However, their cultivation levels weren't high, only at the Earth Lord level. Perhaps too high a level couldn't pass through this crack at all. The difficulty was too high. Hurry up and help. Heaven God Shui and the others were extremely anxious. They didn't want to watch the evil spirit race run away. That meant that many more evil spirits were coming. However, as the evil spirit race came in one after another, their reinforcements still did not arrive. When an evil spirit race came in, his body was not black, but purple. When Yi Tianyun saw the purple body of the evil spirit race, he was immediately startled. He could feel that the purple body of the evil spirit race possessed a very strong mental power. Sure enough, as soon as the purple evil spirit race appeared, it turned its head and stared in the direction of Heavenly God Shui and the others. Then, he pointed to the side and said in a deep voice, "There are enemies hiding there." This purple evil spirit race's cultivation was not high. It was only at the level of the Lord of Heaven. It was slightly higher than the previous one. However, even though he only had the cultivation of the Lord of Heaven, he could easily see through the concealment of a heavenly god. This kind of ability caused even Yi Tianyun to be greatly shocked. Under normal circumstances, it was almost impossible to do this, but this purple evil spirit race was able to do it to this extent, easily seeing through it. After pointing it out, the group of evil spirit race turned their heads and looked over, their eyes bursting with shocking killing intent. Almost without any hesitation, 8 of the evil spirit race quickly separated, while the remaining 7 continued to maintain the spear. However, its power was much weaker, but it seemed like it could still be maintained. The 8 evil spirit races' actions were completely in unison, and they all rushed towards Heavenly God Shui. Heavenly God Shui's was exposed, but Yi Tianyun's was not. The direction they were hiding in was completely different. Damn it, what the hell is that thing? It can actually see through our hiding spot. Heavenly God Shui and the others cursed angrily, then turned around and fled. They did not plan to fight with these 8 evil spirit race. As they fled, their hidden figures were immediately exposed. The 2 of them quickly flew towards their own divine domain. This way, they should be able to meet up with their teammates very quickly. At that time, if they joined forces with their opponents, they would be able to intercept and kill these evil spirit race. However, reality is always cruel. These 8 evil spirit races were like twins, and they quickly joined forces to form a huge evil spirit. With all their might, they stepped on the void and closed the distance between them at an astonishing speed. In just a short while, Heavenly God Shui and the others were caught up by a large margin. They were only a short distance away from being caught up. Too abnormal, this group of people is really abnormal. No wonder they said that we absolutely can't fight them. This time, we're doomed. We can only fight them head-on. Yes, we can only fight them head-on. This time, it was Mang Tian's turn to have very few people left. Neither of them revealed despair in their eyes. Instead, they had raging fighting spirit. Since they were going to die anyway, why not fight to the death? Perhaps they could drag a few of them down with them. Immediately, the 2 of them quickly turned around and immediately summoned their own treasures. However, they only had 1 lower heavenly god spirit treasure, and the rest were all heavenly venerate spirit treasures. After summoning them, they roared loudly and pounced towards the evil spirits, preparing to fight them head-on. Boom! 2 against 8. The huge evil spirits waved their fists and smashed down heavily, sending the two flying and injuring them. It was clear who was superior. When they joined forces, their strength was too strong. They were even stronger than those Alliance Grand formations. Perhaps this was the real joint formation, as if they were truly one. So strong. The two of them coughed a few times and even coughed up blood. However, they quickly adjusted their state and prepared to fight again. Troublemakers, die. The evil spirits that had transformed into evil spirits roared in a hoarse voice. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in front of them again and fiercely waved a few times, exchanging blows with them again. Boom, boom. This time, the evil spirits were sent flying slightly, but Heavenly God Shua and Heavenly God Mang's situation was exaggerated. Half of their bodies were blasted away, but they quickly recovered. However, it would still take some time for them to fully recover. However, they didn't have that much time to prepare. In the next instant, the evil spirits that had transformed into evil spirits charged over and aimed their fists at Heavenly God Shua. As long as they were hit, they would definitely be smashed into a bloody mist. It's over. Heavenly God Shua smiled bitterly. He couldn't even hold his weapon firmly, so how could he block, let alone escape? At this moment, an afterimage pierced through the back of the evil spirits. Accompanied by a flash of silver light, the huge body of the evil spirits was split into several pieces. The evil spirits that had united inside were all repelled, and two of them were directly killed. Such a joint formation was instantly broken. Heavenly God Shua, didn't you say you would invite me for a drink? You can't go back on your word. Chapter 1679. Yi Tianyun's appearance stunned them. How could an upper-level heavenly venerable be so powerful? That was a joint formation. Unless one was an upper-level heavenly god, it would be very difficult to deal with it. However, Yi Tianyun had broken it and killed two heavenly gods. Although their cultivation levels were relatively low, they were still celestial gods. After all, Yi Tianyun was only an upper-level heavenly venerable, yet he was able to kill heavenly gods. It was truly unbelievable. It's you. Heavenly God Shua was still very shocked after he came back to his senses. Even Heavenly God Mang was shocked. The person who had been patrolling with them before had such astonishing strength and even saved Heavenly God Shua. Don't be me. Let's take advantage of the fact that their formation is broken and quickly exterminate them. As soon as he said that, Yi Tianyun quickly put on the voodoo wood divine set and immediately buffed them with super strong healing power. With this super strong healing power, their recovery speed was astonishing, and they returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Although there were still some injuries that had yet to recover, this was not a big problem. The two of them didn't say anything else and immediately charged over. Since the evil spirit race was scattered, it was undoubtedly easier to fight. Especially when dealing with those with lower cultivation levels, it would be much easier to deal with them. Yi Tianyun also targeted the evil spirit race with lower cultivation levels and cleaned up the weakest ones first to prevent them from joining forces again and transforming into the evil spirits. He took so long to come out because he wanted to find the weak point of the formation and destroy it in one fell swoop. After finding it, he quickly pierced through it to destroy it in one fell swoop. Now that they were scattered, he began to harvest crazily. He didn't hold back at all. He used his crazy damage mode and his heavenly venerable spirit treasure set. Facing a lower-level heavenly god, it could simply be described as a harvest. Shui Tianxin and the others were shocked when they saw what was going on. This could simply be described as crazy. He was even crazier than them. Such terrifying power was crazily harvesting all the way, and every move was fatal. Heaven God Shua and the others didn't fall behind either. They followed suit and slaughtered their enemies, causing them to be utterly defeated. The evil spirit race, who was continuing to pry open the cracks in the distance, saw that they might not be able to persevere any longer. Without any hesitation, they stopped prying open the cracks and turned to attack. If this went on, their companions would all die. What was the point of prying open this crack? They were completely unable to attend to one thing and lose sight of another. At this time, the number of evil spirit races coming through the crack rapidly decreased. Previously, they could still come one by one, but without the help of this side, they immediately slowed down, and the speed at which the cracks healed increased. However, the evil spirit race that had crawled over quickly escaped with the other evil spirit races. They did not dare to stay here any longer. With such a low cultivation base, even an Empyrean would be crushed. Hence, it was better to escape first. You want to escape? Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to chase after the evil spirit race, a group of experts suddenly surged over from the side. From their clothes, he could immediately tell that they were reinforcements from the Jianfeng god territory. They came with a large group of heavenly god powerhouses, at least more than 10 heavenly gods. Without a doubt, they all knew how many experts they would need to send to suppress the crack. It's reinforcements. Xue Tianxian and the others were overjoyed. This way, they would be able to catch all of the evil spirit race in one fell swoop. That's right, we've finally held on until they arrive. Meng Tianxian brandished his weapon, his morale soaring. This time, it was their turn to suppress the other party, and not be in a passive state. Let's go. When the evil spirit race saw the reinforcements, they chose to retreat without hesitation. Originally, they wanted to kill Xue Tianxian and the other cultivators and then continue to pry open the crack. Now, it seemed that it was impossible, so they could only retreat. You still want to leave? It won't be that easy. Xue Tianxian and the others roared and chased after them. Their companions who came to support also surrounded them, wanting to stop them. The many evil spirit race gathered again, forming a huge evil spirits, and fled forward. At the same time, they also brought the other new evil spirit races and fled forward. Especially the purple evil spirit race, they were listed as targets of protection. This purple evil spirit race must be in an important position, otherwise, they would not have been so protected. However, it was not easy for them to escape. Otherwise, all the reinforcements would have come for nothing. The reinforcements that came all surrounded them, and each of them exploded with their strongest power, bombarding them. The evil spirit race could only passively defend. The key for them now was to escape, not stay and fight. They had already achieved their goal, so it was time to escape. Yi Tianyun also chased after them, killing the fish that escaped the net. With so many fat sheep, he definitely would not miss it. Even if he did not kill them, he would strengthen them with healing power, so that he could obtain experience. His actions surprised the other powerhouses of the Jianfeng divine realm. They did not know where a heavenly venerable came from, and he had such a strange ability. Most importantly, his power was not weaker than theirs, which was even more strange. After Xue Tianxian and the others reminded them in advance that they were on the same side, they did not explain too much. Anyway, it was fine as long as they were on the same side, the rest could be discussed after the end. As they chased after them, the evil spirit race's consumption gradually increased, but the army that had turned into evil spirits was still a little unbreakable. Unless Yi Tianyun targeted their weakness again, it would be really difficult to stay. But this evil spirits was too fast, so fast that he could not catch up. How could the formation formed by so many heavenly gods easily catch up? Looks like I can only give it my all. I must make that purple evil spirit race stay. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. He could see that the purple evil spirit race was very important. If he did not make it stay, it would definitely be a disaster. Then, Yi Tianyun said in his heart, level up. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to the middle stage upper heavenly venerable. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to the late stage upper heavenly venerable. After leveling up twice in a row, his speed increased crazily. The 5 dragon divine boots under his feet emitted a dazzling golden light, as if he was really stepping on a giant dragon, roaring forward. The power of the dragon and phoenix divine meridians bloomed behind him, and his speed increased by several levels, surpassing the heavenly gods next to him, and he chased after the evil spirits. But his speed was still a little slower, or barely at the same level. This speed is too abnormal, isn't it? If I run with all my strength, can I still have this kind of effect? Tianyun cursed in his heart. He had leveled up twice in a row, but he still could not catch up. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.